Real news. Honest and fun political talk weekly on the line 90.7 FM.
Well, how's it been over there? Like, isn't there like rolling blackouts or something in California right now because of their like poopy public utilities?
So we had so it was really dry, cold, and windy like back in October and part of November, and so they were shutting off the power for most of Northern California to prevent fires. But it was super weird because the areas they were shutting off, it may as well have been a wealth map rather than a logical map of places where there could be fires. So the wealthy neighborhoods kept their power and the poorer neighborhoods got turned off. And then, of course, all the wealthy neighborhoods who kept their power caught fire.
It's ironic.
So it was kind of weird. So, yeah, actually, I had to evacuate from that for about a week.
Oh, jeez.
So, yeah, I don't know. The Northern California infrastructure is it's probably got to be. I mean, I haven't spent too much time in other places, but I can only imagine it's probably one of the worst in the country.
I don't know. PA's pretty bad over here.
Yeah, we do have it bad.
What? I guess I'm assuming that there's so many fucking people in California that, like, I guess it's like tough to build an infrastructure to handle all of those freaking people. But yeah, it's
old.
That place is a mess. It's a mess.
Yeah,
I don't know how you do it.
I don't know how I'm doing it either. At this point, I'm actually I had to move out of my place in San Francisco, and at the moment, I'm technically homeless. So,
oh my,
yeah, I don't really know what's gonna happen next because trying to find a place to live in the middle of like power outages, torrential rains, like crazy windstorms, and then the political climate is just as much a shit show. So,
yeah.
I mean, the laws they're passing right now in California are completely insane.
Why are there these
fucking Gavin Newsom?
Hey.
Oh
yeah,
God.
The dude's like, I don't mean him any disrespect when I say this, but like he's dyslexic, like literally. Like I don't know if he can read the shit he's signing. Like, so
it's
that's
like
kind of a problem for me.
he pays more attention to the grease on his hair than he does the actual the actual people in the state.
Yeah, I don't know, man. He's out on his own doing whatever he's doing. I mean, he was hailed as some great mayor when he was the mayor of San Francisco, but San Francisco is a complete shit show now. So, I mean, I guess it kind of peaked around the time he was mayor, but since he left, it's been all downhill from there. So usually, you can kind of judge a situation based on what happens after the person in power leaves, versus more so who comes into power next, because the next person who comes into power has to spend all their time cleaning shit up, kind of like Trump's had to clean up Obama's messes. Like, a lot of stuff doesn't actually get done. So it's hard to say that, he just might have been in the right place at the right time, and I don't think it really had anything to do with him.
Are they doing anything to fix those power outages, and why are they happening exactly?
So they basically haven't updated the infrastructure in most of Northern California in the last 30 to 50 years. So everything's super old. Then they passed a bunch of environmentalist laws that don't let us trim back the forest, and you literally can't even cut a tree limb that's about to fall on a power line.
Oh my God.
Because they passed laws and legislation that you have to get permits and all this stuff now. So it used to be back in the day, if you saw, a tree was gonna, had grown over a power line, you could just go cut the damn tree down and no one would ask any questions and they'd thank you for it. Now you can get fined if you do that. So yeah, that's a problem. Forest thinning is a problem, which some counties are still pretty good about it. There are counties that are up in the Sierra Nevada, and there's some counties that have had to pass their own legislation to kind of override the state's legislation, and they've got enough funding that they're able to thin the forests and do controlled burns, and they have to basically do it themselves without state help. And there's a couple counties that do that, but most of them don't have the money or the resources, and the state won't give it to them. So, then you end up with situations like Santa Rosa, what just happened in Paradise and that whole situation. So, there's unfortunately, without state support, you're kind of on your own as a county to kind of manage stuff on your own. And a lot of these counties are poor. They don't have a lot of resources. So the state is supposed to be there to give them those resources. And the state is so corrupt that they're not doing that. And when that's literally happened for 40, 50 years, you get into a situation where they're literally shutting the power down and entire cities are burning to the ground.
Do you think any of this will ever get people to stop voting Democrat?
I don't think so. I mean, like, there's obviously the left-right paradigm, and at this point, I think politicians in general are just so corrupt. People need to just stop voting for both parties, and they need to just vote for people they actually know in their communities who actually do things. And it should be the guy who is out fixing their neighbor's roofs during a storm. That's the guy that we need to elect, because that's the person who will actually get something done. We need to stop electing rich, powerful elites who don't even know what the price of milk is. That's the real problem.
Yeah, it just seems crazy too. And then I also heard that if you even want to get a generator over there, you have to have a permit to go and run your own generator that costs by the end of everything, it's like $30,000 or something, or just for the generator itself. There's some sort of really weird rule about that. That's making so only the rich can even pay to have their own generator.
So I don't know. I'd have to research it. I don't know the exact legislation or what the exact rules are, but I do know PG&E, who's the company that has created this mess, they were leasing generators out during the blackouts, and they made them so cost prohibitive that only rich people could rent them. And I did see driving around that there were quite a few, houses in well-to-do areas that, had temporary generators out in front of them during the power outages. Didn't see that in the poorer neighborhoods. So yeah, it's just, we don't have a lot of generators in California, because California it doesn't really, it only really snows in the mountains. So, typically, as long as they're not shutting the power off at the source, you have power out here. The weather doesn't get that extreme. So,
it's the hippies. It's the hippies. they went and stuck it to you guys. We don't need power. We'll just live off the candles, man.
They probably have some
sort of. Those people are those are the only ones who are doing all right now. Because I don't know. Everyone else is sitting around without power sometimes. So it's absolutely bizarre. And they said it's probably going to take 10, 15 years until they're not going to have to do this anymore.
Oh my God.
Yeah. So this is the new normal for Northern California now.
I was actually talking to, or overheard somebody in Seattle that was talking to somebody about California, and she was from Sacramento, and she said that their biggest problem, I've heard many times, is the homeless problem in California. And I assume a lot of that, because homelessness, from what I understand, is also a mental health problem. A lot of people there have mental issues, become homeless quickly and easily. But it also sounds like, from what I've seen, just the price to live in California, to buy a home, just rent an apartment, is absolutely insane.
Oh, it is. The cost of living is just completely nuts. And the problem is, we had a major wealth transfer in 2008. So a lot of people lost their homes, and a lot of people lost their rental properties, and a lot of those properties have shifted to being owned by banks. A lot of those properties are still technically in foreclosure and possibly even just sitting empty. There's you've got other factors like foreign buyers. So, for example, if you're a wealthy, in the top 1% in China, and you want to launder some money or tuck some money away in the United States, you could buy an entire block in Palo Alto, and you don't even need to rent the units out, and they will increase in value, and you'll get a return on your investment. So they've actually figured out that it's cheaper to not rent out the homes and still get an ROI, because there's actually liabilities if you rent the apartments out or the homes out. So there's entire neighborhoods in some of the really wealthy areas that are just sitting empty, and they're just being bought in cash by foreign investors. So you've got that scenario. You've also got this other weird phenomenon of the micro apartments.
I've heard about those.
Yeah, they're building these micro apartment complexes all over the state. I mean, I was driving through Santa Cruz, and even in Santa Cruz, like, probably one of the, more hippie areas of the whole state of California, most of the downtown area has been completely redeveloped and is filled with micro apartments. So little tiny apartments that are like 600-700 square feet, and they're renting them out for $2,000-$3,000 for a 1-bedroom apartment. And it's just it's just stupid. They built them down in Orange County. They've built them all the way up along the coast. They're building them in San Francisco. They're building them in other neighborhoods in the Bay Area now. So a lot of those buildings are also owned by foreign investors. A lot of it's the Chinese, some of it's the Saudis, some of it's other money from other oligarchs or whoever, and they're building and buying, and then they try to rent these out as like luxury apartments and stuff, and it's just nuts. And that is making the housing crisis and the homeless situation worse, because if you live in a neighborhood where they just built a bunch of micro apartments, and now they've got a bunch of availability, and they're not renting them for anything less than $3,000 for a 1-bedroom apartment. Well, if you've got a 3-bedroom house down the street that's maybe 30 years old, well, what do you rent it for if the 1-bedroom's going for $3K? You're going to think that, the market's dictating that 3-bedroom house is worth, $4,000, $5,000, $6,000. So it's creating this like weird, it's not quite inflation, but it's inflation. And it's creating this kind of like weird dichotomy where it's creating this concept that there's this supply and demand scenario that's happening, but it's totally artificial, because they built all these micro apartments that a lot of people can't afford to live in. And then there's the people who do move into these units, and they do live in these apartments, and then they think this is totally normal to pay $3,000 a month for a 1-bedroom apartment. So it's created a really kind of a screwed up environment. And then you factor in the mental health issues, you factor in all the legislation that's passed that's supposedly supposed to take care of these people, but I don't see it. I see the homeless situation getting worse and worse and worse. I mean, on one level, like, I was not intending to move out of San Francisco. That was not my plan. I was basically forced out. But since I've been out, I'm kind of like looking back going, hey, like, it's kind of nice to be in a neighborhood where like people aren't literally taking a shit on the street, and like I'm not having to fear for, I mean, there's literally neighborhoods in San Francisco where I wouldn't let my dog walk on the street because I was afraid he was going to walk into human feces.
How much poop is there in San Francisco?
A lot.
Like, is it on every street?
No, but there's areas where it is. There are areas of the city where it's almost on every street.
Wow.
And if they're not pooping, they're peeing. So there's entire neighborhoods where it just smells like urine constantly, especially when it hasn't rained.
Why are they using the street?
Some of it's the Golden State Warriors, man. They're terrible this year.
well, honestly, like, why are people like using the street? Do they not have any public restrooms over there?
So most restaurants, most hotels, most like establishments will not let the homeless use the bathroom. They have built some outdoor bathrooms, but I mean it goes through the state and the cities and all that stuff. So a tiny like 3-stall bathroom costs like over $1 million to build in the city of San Francisco. Like the amount of money that gets spent to do something as simple as building a tiny bathroom like is insane. So the permits, all the legislation, all the crap that you have to spend money on to actually get something like that built, it ends up costing $1 million to build a single toilet. It's ridiculous.
And then you gotta build a transgender bathroom next to it too in California.
Well, I kind of remember. I kind of remember when the Niners built their stadium out in San Jose, and it ended up
Santa Clara.
Right, and so you remember when the Cowboys stadium was built? It went for 1.6 billion. And it was in Arlington, Texas, and had all the bells and whistles, had the
big screen,
the largest LED screen in a Guinness Book of World Records, and like all the bells and whistles. And then you see San Francisco Stadium, it costs 1.3, and it's like pretty basic. Like it's like a basic stadium.
It's pretty basic. People fry during like September and the August preseason games. Like it gets in the 80s. So like half the stadium's in the sun and they didn't cover it. I have no idea why.
And then did you see you see the mess going on with Los Angeles? That Los Angeles is trying to build a stadium. It was originally supposed to be $3.5 billion. And because, it's California, the construction costs ended up going to like $5 billion. And now it's still going even further. They're saying it's possible that it could hit 10 billion by the time it's all said and done.
And it's delayed. It's not even done.
Yeah. I mean, it's nuts. It's nuts. That's California for you.
Yeah. So, I mean, and the funny thing is I was just reading that the main team in Los Angeles is the Raiders. Like that's the actual fans that live in LA. Their team is the Raiders, and they don't care about the Rams, and they don't care about the Chargers. No. And then they're moving the Raiders to Las Vegas. Vegas, I think they're getting their stadium done. I think it's on schedule, or it might be like a year delayed actually, but I think Vegas will have its stadium for the Raiders probably before LA gets their stadium. And LA's stadium has been being built for several years longer. And the Vegas one may end up being similar or even nicer. So
probably.
The difference of one state over.
The proposals looked great. Like the initial proposals for the stadium looked spectacular, but the problem with building a stadium in California too is if your team blows, people just aren't going to show up. People are they're just going to sit on their PSL or sell their tickets that way, and then just go to Great America theme park or go to the beach or go somewhere else because it's California. There's lots of stuff to do. Well, not right
when
now.
The Niners
power, but
the Niners played the Rams, it was basically a 49er home game.
Yeah.
Because everyone from the Bay Area's got cash, so they just flew down to LA for the weekend and they bought up all the seats. And there's not a lot of LA Rams fans, so they've had that issue where for the Chargers it's been an issue this year, and it's been an issue for the Rams where their home games are feeling more like away games.
Yeah. So this is like, it's translatable in the sense of like,
it's the macro, it's like a giant freaking stadium. Like you can see it happening on the biggest level, one of the biggest sports in the world. Like it's happening at such a macro level. You can only imagine the shit show that's happening at the micro level.
Yeah.
It's bad. It's really bad. The whole state is kind of screwed.
Yeah, and already you could tell that the Rams owners feeling it too, because they recent in the last owners meeting that they had, they the Rams owner, like he tried to push a proposal where he was trying to get a loan from the Players Association, and like
Mm-hmm.
then and they would get 49% of the revenue from the stadium. And of course, obviously, the players union was like, "Hell no!" Like, obviously, like, look, like you're not going to sit like as a player, like if you're a member of the players union, you're the average player is only going to be around for 4 or 5 years, something like that.
If
You're not
that.
going to see it. You're not going to see the fruits of all of that. Like, no,
Yeah.
terrible. But like you could tell, he's reeling. Like if he's trying to pull out a proposal like that, you could tell he's reeling, and you know that the city of Los Angeles is breathing down his neck too.
Probably.
Yeah. One thing I was gonna ask, I will say this is technically off air right now, but we're gonna cut this up and then
We should just put it
air
on.
it.
We should just put it on the air. Like just edit it.
That's
and
what
just
I'm
put it
gonna
on the
do.
air.
Cause
Whatever
yeah,
you want to do.
yeah, this is great. Like, 'cause I didn't expect to start talking about how shitty California is, but and it's bound to come up, you know. So one thing I do want to ask, because I'm always, try to get like both sides of things or see if there's any positive here. Is there anything that California does do really well or better than anyone else?
I mean, you still have Hollywood, obviously. You still have the tech industry, obviously. I mean, those two industries are doing well, but they're doing well for all the wrong reasons. So, you've got Hollywood, which is, basically the propaganda, deep state arm or whatever the hell you want to call it these days. I mean, I can't even watch most of the stuff that Hollywood produces now because it's so filled with social justice bullshit. I mean, they pretty much ruined Star Wars and pretty much anything else that I, liked as a child. It's all been corrupted by now. So, I mean, but they're still doing okay. I mean, they're still, despite piracy and everything else, like, Disney's doing all right. Disney isn't going to go anywhere. Silicon Valley, I mean, data is worth more than oil now. So, they're selling everyone's data and they've got the whole world under surveillance. And, despite the fact that, they don't get along with the current administration in the White House, they're still pretty much running the entire internet. So, everybody who's using a smartphone on a daily basis is under constant surveillance, and we're getting ads pushed at us and our privacy eroded and all that good stuff. So, I mean, on one hand, they're making a ton of money from all of that. They're making a killing. So, there's definitely, you can definitely argue from a profit standpoint, like they're doing well, but again, it's kind of for the wrong reasons. I mean, geographically, the area is still beautiful. The problem is just the corruption, the politics, and, the people. I mean, a lot of areas just aren't built for the population that lives here now. So, that's what causes a lot of the problems is you've got roads that weren't designed for the amount of people that are traveling on those roads. You've got traffic. You've got areas being developed that probably shouldn't have been developed the way that they were developed. You've got, older, wealthier areas that are still beautiful, but they're basically gated communities. In some cases, they're literally gated. In other cases, they're so expensive that, nobody even dares to go into those areas, or they're completely priced out, the average person. So, there's still beauty here. There's still natural beauty. I mean, that's one thing that the state definitely still has. I mean, you've got the beaches, you've got the mountains still. You still have the natural beauty and resources that are here.
Yeah.
But unfortunately, it's the people and the politics that have kind of corrupted it all.
That's kind of how Adam Carolla, I remember, described it, is like California is kind of like a supermodel. It's beautiful and pretty on the outside, but on the inside, it's not so pretty. There's a lot of problems.
Self-esteem issues.
Yeah. Oh, it's got major.
Look, I wanted to ask a question because you're in California and you're kind of seeing a lot of this. And we did, since we did talk about how like in the real estate industry, they have a lot of Chinese investment and a lot of Saudi investment, like with with Holly, both actually both with Hollywood and with Silicon Valley. Is it hitting there too? I noted because I noticed in Hollywood, like there's a lot of Chinese production companies in
Oh
Hollywood,
yeah.
like that are pushing Hollywood, and even Disney. Disney's got a lot of Chinese influence too,
Yeah.
and yeah, and then with some of these social media companies or like some of these tech companies, they're getting a lot of Saudi and Chinese investment too. So you think, and you know, a lot of that is not friendly for America, but
Correct.
like, so like, how do you fight that? Like, how do you fight that? Because there's you nobody, like basically they've turned it to where if you want to be famous at all, which a lot of people do in this country, like you're pretty much going to have to tiptoe along that, Chinese,
Yeah, the Chinese
Saudi,
censorship laws.
yeah, the ridiculous, yeah, and
I
like,
mean, if you want to know who's pushing socialism and communism in the United States of America, look to China. They
yeah,
own all of our Fortune 500 companies. They own most of our real estate. They're buying up all our farms. They're buying out all of our cities. They bought our debt in the 2008 market crash. So they're now looking, it's just past, 10 years now. So they're looking for a return on their investment. They bought all the debt, they bought all the foreclosed properties, they bought all the land, and now they're sitting back going, where's my ROI? And a lot of what we're seeing right now is a result of that. At the same time, you have Trump and his trade wars with China, and he's kind of stood up to them. So there's actually been a pulling out of new Chinese investment. So what we're seeing today is the side effect of the investments that were made over the last 10 years. So what we're witnessing, what we're experiencing now is not necessarily some new phenomenon. It's the phenomenon of what's happened over the last 10 years. And we're just seeing, the result of those investments that some of them happened 5 years ago, some of them happened 7 years ago. So we're now seeing the after effects of kind of those older investments. But I think from a newer investment standpoint, the Chinese have actually pulled back, and the Chinese are actually possibly on their verge of their own financial crisis, and they're starting to have issues. So I think there were two major Chinese firms that were not able to pay some of their debts recently or something like that. Big banks in China, and China is having they're having side effects of this kind of currency war and the currency manipulation that they were doing. And now they're kind of having to pay the price for that. So it's going to be really interesting to see what's going to happen moving forward, because I think we're actually going to see a lot of the Chinese investors sell their interest in the United States and pull their money out of the United States, especially if Trump ends up getting reelected. And it'll be good and bad. It's going to be a good thing because it'll force Americans to become more self-sufficient and not rely on China again. In the short term, it's going to be detrimental to some industries and some areas and some, because all of a sudden, all the cash that was flowing through those areas through, all this foreign investment is going to dry up. So, you're going to see those Hollywood Chinese studios possibly shut down. You're going to see some of these tech companies not be able to raise that next round of capital. And you're going to see that disappear from the market, and that's going to have a really negative impact in the short term. In the long term, it's going to force us into the reality that, hey, maybe globalism wasn't so great after all, and we need to go back to being self-sufficient, and that would probably benefit the country and the average American. But a lot of people are going to lose a lot of money really fast sooner in the short term. So there's pros and cons to, what could happen and what's going to happen next. And, at the same time, like, you look at what China's doing right now with Hong Kong, You look at what they're doing with technology. When it comes, I might be mispronouncing it. It's the Uyghurs. It's a Muslim population in China that they basically have in internment camps right now.
Yeah.
I mean, there's basically a genocide happening, and they're using artificial intelligence and they're using facial recognition technology to identify people that have these physical traits, and then they're arresting them and putting them in internment camps. Like, that's happening right now in China. You've got the Chinese military showing up in Hong Kong, wearing police uniforms and pretending they're the police, and killing and beating protesters and doing all kinds of stuff. So you've got you have China's in this really like provocative place right now in the world, where there's kind of a stage right now of what's happening in Hong Kong, and we're seeing what lengths they're willing to go through, and to kind of get their way. And then you've seen, obviously, like with the NBA scandal and all that kind of stuff, that happened with China, and NBA players apologizing to China, and all that kind of craziness. South Park did some hilarious episodes on this whole thing.
Yeah, I was gonna ask about that. I was gonna ask if you saw that South Park. That was funny.
Yeah, they covered it well. I mean, this is a real problem in the United States right now, where the CEOs of major corporations, the CEOs and executives in our sports leagues are more afraid of the Chinese president than the president of the United States. That's reality. That's 2019. Like, that is something that is happening right now. And it's because of China's investment in the United States.
Yeah.
Like I said, over the last 10, 11 years, they bought up all our infrastructure. So we're seeing the side effect of that. And, it's not that dissimilar to what the United States did to Russia and the Soviet Union in the 70s and 80s. I mean, our main weapon of war during the Cold War the thing that actually ended up being that worked was economics. So, now you're kind of seeing an economic war. Well, not kind of, we are seeing an economic war between China and the United States. And right now, the United States is on the losing end of that war.
I think it's good that you mentioned that too, because I've seen some people on the so-called Groyper side of the right. They keep talking about how there's all this Israeli influence on America. We need to be worrying about that. Why, as a group that supposedly claims that they're, super America first, they don't seem to be that worried about China's influence. I could be wrong, but I think China's our biggest quote-unquote enemy, and they're our biggest negative influencer on the country by far. And it took Trump to actually get people to care about this a lot more.
Yeah, I mean, so there's a couple things there. So the way I see it is there's what's happening on the East Coast versus what's happening on the West Coast. So on the East Coast, and a lot of the old money families, and New York and DC, and probably most parts of Florida, and you are not seeing the Chinese influence there.
Yeah.
The East Coast is still America. The West Coast is slowly becoming, I don't know, new China. So you've basically got a divide at the Mississippi, and basically everything to the west of the Mississippi is becoming California, and everything east is just becoming the East Coast. So, the East Coast, I don't think, sees China as much of a threat because they aren't seeing this. You're not seeing that in New York in the financial sector, in Wall Street as much. I mean, they know China's in there playing the game, but they're not seeing them as a major influencer. China does own a lot of major Fortune 500 companies and does have influence there, but for most people in Wall Street, that they're just playing the game just like everyone else is. So the problem is with the West Coast, Hollywood and Silicon Valley are significant portions of it are owned by the Chinese, to the point where, and we rely on the Chinese for manufacturing, especially for the tech industry. I mean, anybody who's carrying an iPhone or an Android phone, it was made in China. So a lot of our processors, a lot of our technology is made there. So You know, an iPhone made in the United States without Chinese slaves, I don't know how else to call it, you know, would probably cost 3 or 4K for the top of the end line model if that was made by people who were being paid a fair wage and weren't being mistreated. So, you know, that's the reality. And, you know, back in the day, in the early 90s and the 80s, computers were super expensive. Like, if you wanted to buy a crappy computer, it was $3,000 in the early 90s because they were made in the US. So, you know, we almost have to like go backwards a little bit if you want to reduce our reliance on China. And so much money and so much profit has been made because China's been able to efficiently, you know, bring so many products to the market essentially at a loss for anyone else. And so that's completely changed the economic global landscape to the point where, you know, you basically can't even buy basic things anymore in the United States because there's no manufacturing capacity here. So, I mean, just even if you're building a home or you're trying to repair a home, trying to fix a home that was built, you know, in the United States that 30 years ago, all the suppliers, all the parts you would have bought from an American supplier 30 years ago. And all of those companies have either been bought or consolidated or gone out of business. So now if you're trying to fix a 30-year-old home today, you're having to buy replacement parts from China instead of American companies. So, and if you're building a new home, then your only option is to buy stuff from China if you want certain things. So it's, you know, that's just kind of the reality of what's happened because of, you know, the kind of disposable nature of the goods that we get from China. And a lot of people just like ignore the fact that this was all on the backs of slaves. This is modern day slavery. And, you know, everybody wants to talk about reparations and social justice in the United States, but they have no problem putting on a pair of Nikes. And it just baffles my mind because, you know, everyone's walking around with iPhones and Nikes and, you know, clothes made in sweatshops by slaves. And we're talking about something that happened in the United States like 100 years ago. So, you know, we've at least in the United States, we've moved away from that to some extent. I mean, obviously wage slavery and, you know, there's still systematic oppression that's basically happening to everyone. But, you know, it's on a different level than what's happening in China. I mean, in China, it's just straight up old school traditional slavery. And that's who's making our iPhones and, you know, all our Nikes and all our shoes and all that kind of stuff. So that ability to produce goods where if you produce them ethically anywhere else in the world, you know, they would have a totally different value. That's completely changed how the economy works. So kind of going back to that East to West Coast paradigm, you know, the West Coast has basically kind of sold itself out to this because they needed a source of investment to get through, you know, to get through the market crash and what happened in 2008. We are still suffering from the effects of that. And I don't think the average person really understood what happened in 2008. And that, you know, basically we got bought and sold like slaves ourselves from one group of owners to another. And the West Coast happened to get bought by the Chinese. That's kind of the reality of it. So the East Coast is still owned by a different group of investors. You know, you still have old money, you still have traditional money, you still have money from London, from England, you still have European money in the East Coast. You still have, you know, the old money wealth families that have gone back hundreds of years and generations. They still have power on the East Coast. But they've lost territory on the West Coast, and China has become that new dominant economic powerhouse.
Well, the left is, like, from a political standpoint, the left is sold out, like, really who they are too. You look at like free. Let's take free speech for example. In the 90s, free speech was a liberal thing. That was a liberal pillar, and yeah, and now they're embracing the silencing of other people. They're embracing the invasion of privacy. And these are things that that the left used to like cradle themselves around, and they've sold all of that out. Like they've sold everything that they stand for, really, because like they're in the Chinese pocket too. You
Oh yeah.
look how much foreign investment look how much foreign investment is going illegally going into the political spheres too. Like all these, so yeah, you look at the Clinton Foundation, you look at how like corrupt that is. Like that's
Yep.
like it's just how they illegally channel money, like because you can't directly give more than a certain amount. But what the Clintons did was they brought up the Clinton Foundation, and through that they got foreign investments, and then the foundation in turn donated to
The
political
campaigns and
the
I mean,
campaigns. Yeah, it's dirty.
And-
The
when you
whole
have
thing is dirty.
billionaires, like Soros and Epstein, and you've got Bill Gates that also, they run their own foundations and they run their own grassroots organizations and all these things. I shouldn't even say grassroots. They're not grassroots. They're literally
They're
they're
engineers.
activist groups run by billionaires.
Dude,
and
Tom
funded by
Steyer is one of
billionaires.
those guys too, right? Tom Steyer has he's next, like what, the next
gen guy? Yeah.
He's the guy who runs Gen.
So that's the problem, is there's all these billionaires essentially that also have way too much power and influence. I mean, there's no logical reason why there really is no logical reason why billionaires should be allowed to exist like within the economic system that we have today. I mean, it just doesn't make sense to have more money than you could ever spend in a lifetime. It's just another flaw of our economy and the economic system. Like, obviously, if you're able to make a lot of money, like, you should be able to keep that wealth to some degree. Like, I obviously believe in that. There is that libertarian part of me. But on the other end of the spectrum, there's also this, like, I definitely don't understand the money hoarding that we see with corporations and with billionaires, because what happens is they're not really billionaires. All of that money is locked up in investments, and it's all just numbers on a computer screen, and they don't have liquidity, so they can't actually go pull, $500 million out of a bank account and go invest it in their local community. Like, that's not how it works. So, we talk about these people having billions of dollars, but in reality, they just own assets that are supposedly worth billions of dollars. But it's all based on an imaginary system. So it's kind of like, I don't know, we allowed these kind of like kings to exist within the system, and I don't really know why we need this many kings. And at the same time, like, why do 15 billionaires own all the media companies in the entire world?
Yeah.
Like, what's the deal with that? Like, 15 people get to decide what the entire planet gets to consume for media and information? Like, that doesn't make sense.
And I think it's also interesting how Twitter claims that they're fighting this billionaire influence by banning political ads on their platform. They said this about a month ago. But I personally think it's a rather a odd coincidence that they do this after the Trump campaign announces how much money they've raised, more than anybody else, and just like crushing their competition. I'm afraid that now you're seeing somebody like Twitter, this one tech platform, can shift an election by just doing one simple thing like banning political ads.
Yeah. Oh, I mean, then you got Facebook, who, I mean, arguably Facebook and Cambridge Analytica helped get Trump elected. I don't know if it was the deciding thing, but I mean, based off of everything I've analyzed, it was definitely a factor in him winning the election, because he was able to target swing states.
Yeah.
So if Facebook didn't exist, Donald Trump may not be president right now. So Facebook had no problem taking Trump's money during the last election, and had no problem helping him get elected. It was only after the fact where they went, oops. But that was just based on their own political leanings, their own greed, essentially was, hey, let's take his money. This guy can't win. And their tools were so effective, they helped him win. So it's it's just this like weird thing because no one at Facebook probably supported Trump, so but they had no problem giving him the tools to win.
Yeah.
So Twitter's basically throwing their hands up and saying, we're not going to play this game. But at the same time, by not playing the game at all, Twitter's basically also, I don't know. I mean, it's a bizarre situation for Twitter because they know they can't police it. And that's probably the main reason why they did this. But it also creates a situation where now new political candidates cannot use Twitter as a vehicle to gain power or influence. So they basically shot themselves in the foot because their Twitter is now irrelevant when it comes to political campaigning. And by making that stand, like, maybe that'll be good for their platform going forward. I don't know. I can't answer that question, but to me, it seems like they shot themselves in the foot. What would have made sense was to make clear guidelines of what can and can't be run during campaigns and actually spend the money and resources to make sure that happened. If millions upon millions of dollars, is going to be run through these campaigns, take a hit on the profit, adjust your margins, and hire people to solve the problem.
Well, I think there's a lot more. I think there's a lot more foreign
influence.
I think there's a lot more foreign influence on with Facebook and YouTube and all those guys now than there was in 2016. Like they're basically, suiting themselves up for a different set of rich people. And I mean, I don't know. Real quick, because I know you're really big on the social media, like you've got your thumb on the social media imprint here. So we all know that on December 10th was like the magic day on YouTube, like where
it's Judgment Day.
They're changing their rules to.
They're changing their business model.
Yeah, they're pretty much change their business model. They have the power to nix you if you're not commercially viable. What is it? What do you think this means? Like, and especially for like smaller people. I mean, I think they were trying to crap on the small creator anyway. But like, what's your take on all of this?
I mean, basically, there's since I've been around and I've been watching this like weird obsession, I've lived in both Northern California and Southern California, and Southern California and Hollywood is obsessed with the tech industry, and they always want to outdo the tech industry. And the tech industry is always obsessed with what Hollywood's doing and wants to always outdo Hollywood. So there's always this like grass is greener on the other side, situation that's played out between Hollywood and Silicon Valley. And basically YouTube wants to be Hollywood. They don't want to be Silicon Valley anymore. They've made that really clear with investing in producing their own TV shows. They've made that really clear with how they've adjusted their algorithms to prevent, content creators from getting their content out and stopped recommending it. And, literally decided, oh, someone like Tim Pool, for example, is too popular. We're just going to turn his recommendations off. They don't want people becoming too powerful, becoming celebrities on YouTube anymore, which is so ironic because that was literally the point of YouTube. Well, the initial point of YouTube is it was actually a dating website. No one probably remembers that, but it was supposed to be like a video dating site, and that was its original intention. Its second intention was to then be a content creating site that was supposed to be the anti-Hollywood. So it was originally designed and intended for having conversations with people in a video format. And that was the original intention of YouTube. And that's the reason for the name YouTube. So it was always intended to be this, this empowering, self-empowering platform to enable people to be able to, essentially communicate with each other, build a following and achieve all of that. Now they're changing their business model to become Netflix. And that's basically what it is. Their YouTube is the next Netflix. If you've seen what's happened with all these content creators, you've got Disney Plus now, you have HBO now, you've got, all these streaming apps and all these streaming services. It's all about the reoccurring revenue because people are turning off their cable subscriptions and people are not subscribing to cable anymore. So all the subsidies, all the money that they used to get from those cable subscriptions, these content producers and creators aren't getting anymore. So they're all creating their own streaming apps and their own streaming services, and they're all trying to compete. So you've got Hulu, you've got Apple Plus now, you've got Disney Plus, you've got all these streaming services out there, and YouTube is saying, hey, wait a second, we have the biggest, video website on the internet. So why does, Netflix get to be worth all this money and generate all this profit and we don't? Because, they're basically, it's basically always a different business model. So now YouTube is saying, as of December 10th, like, the business model is Netflix. Period. They're just basically just shifting YouTube to be the next Netflix. They're going to start producing their own content and their own exclusive shows. They're going to push their subscription service to generate that recurring revenue. It's all about the money. And it's all about this fascination that Silicon Valley has with Hollywood. It's kind of this weird obsession that these tech executives have. And you see it happening with Apple as well. Apple's rolled out their own streaming service, and they've set up studios and they're working with content creators in Hollywood. They're moving more and more of their team down to Hollywood. They're setting up shop there. They've realized that moving forward they can't keep getting everyone to buy iPhones, and that they need to figure out how to sell them content for the devices they already own. So if they can get another $5 a month out of everyone's pocket, there's potentially billions of dollars to be made there. So, there's going to be kind of this war between all these major tech companies and all these content creation companies to kind of see what's going to happen next. And YouTube's basically drawn a line in the sand and said, we are the dominant video, platform, and we're shifting to the Hollywood model. And they're just going to end the entire principles and ideology and concepts that the original YouTube was created on.
And that's the thing that gets me, is that they're literally killing their own brand here by doing this. They were all about the small content creator that could, make a video in their room, a music video, make it big one day, or have just a playground for you to do whatever you want, an open sandbox. And now it's getting more structured. It's only, they only treat people that are super successful and advertiser friendly with any kindness. And where are people going to go now if they want to, make their own content? They're going to be more, demoralized and unmotivated to do it on YouTube if they push this, even further and too far.
Correct. So what they're doing is they're pushing, in particularly, the younger generation and Gen Z. They're not giving them a chance. They're basically building walls and barriers, preventing them from reaching success and internet fame that the previous generations got to enjoy. This all started with Gen X, actually. It was actually Gen X who built the original YouTubes and the original sites and laid the foundation for all of this stuff. It was, and then the millennials kind of came along, amplified it, and to some degree, lowered the common denominator. And then, but that was, the millennial generation really latched onto these technologies and really took it to that next level. And that's when we saw, massive followings of millions of users and that kind of thing. But I don't think when they created YouTube, or at least when it was created by these, this older generation originally, when they created it, they didn't really think about hey, what happens when, this guy's got 50 million followers and he's able to dictate policy in the United States of America, because all of a sudden he gets political about a certain topic and he's got 50 million people he can reach. So the powers that be and the elite, or whatever the hell you want to call them, they kind of didn't realize how powerful that was going to be, and that they were going to lose control of the ability to set narrative. They thought that their propaganda networks, their news networks were always going to be the dominant source of information. And they didn't really care about YouTube, and they saw it as a joke. They said, this will never take off. This will never be anything. They kind of even wrote off the internet initially. People, when Netflix was first created, was like, oh, this will never work. I remember the early days when Netflix first came out, and
you got
everyone in Hollywood was like, this will never work. This can't be the solution. Now Netflix is the king of the castle, and everyone wants to get their content on Netflix, and Netflix owns everything. So, and now you've got Disney trying to get into the game, and Apple trying to get into the game, and now Google trying to get into the game with YouTube. So, yeah, it's just this kind of cycle of consolidation really that happens in the tech industry, that pick an industry and like watch as everything will kind of consolidate, and then at some point someone will come along, like the CEO of YouTube, and will completely screw everything up and reverse the business model and shift or pivot to something new, and then everyone leaves. We've had other social media platforms before, like MySpace, for example, that no one uses anymore. There was a really popular news aggregator called Dig before everyone used Reddit.
I remember Dig.
There were other chat applications. We're recording this on Discord right now. Like there were dozens and dozens of other applications that did exactly what this one does, but now this one's popular for some reason with the next generation, and all the old software is no longer popular. So there's always kind of this like temporary nature for all of these applications and all of these online communities. And we're seeing that we saw the internet grow so rapidly because of the advent of the smartphone and getting so many people onto all of these services so quickly that it kind of delayed the cycle, where it used to happen a little bit faster. Now it's happening slower because these platforms got so big. But I think the majority of people on YouTube are just going to leave. The content creators are going to have to go find a new place. They're going to have to go find another place on the internet, and they're going to have to find new business models, and they're going to have to find another way to gain a following. It's just a matter of time before someone creates the next social network, and everyone, in the younger generation says, that's what I'm going to gravitate towards, and get away from the platforms their parents are using. And there's always that generational rebellion that also happens, that also kind of helps dictate these this ebb and flow of how these things work. The next generation doesn't want to listen to the same music that their parents listen to. They don't want to watch the same movies. They don't want to participate in the same social networks. So someone somewhere is going to create the next big thing, and everyone will go focus on that. The problem is sometimes that next big thing is something like TikTok that is owned by the Chinese. It's mostly Chinese investors that own that company. And like, they just got caught recently. They figured out that to get rid of hate speech on their platform, you had to ban all the people that people would make fun of. So they started banning gays. They started banning, people with disabilities. They started banning people who were overweight. And they figured out that if you ban the people that are the most likely to get made fun of, or, that are going to have people who are going to hate them for whatever reason, if you get rid of those marginalized groups, then there's nothing for people to get angry at. So, a lot of these
one way to deal with it.
Facebook and Twitter, they've taken the opposite approach. Well, we're going to ban the masses because they made fun of a marginalized group. Well, TikTok said, that doesn't make sense. We want these users. The users we don't want are the ones that are, that are causing the problem for us. So, they made the, arguably unethical decision to ban the marginalized groups. But at the same time, that was the logical decision because they didn't want to ban their users. So we're now in these weird kind of dichotomies where we've entered a new age of censorship, where now the people being censored, are the ones that, supposedly all these rules were created for to protect.
Yeah.
And we're seeing this like reversal of what we were originally told it was supposed to be. So, you can basically ban everybody off of your platform that would, make fun of someone who's overweight, or you can ban the one overweight person and keep all your users. And that's literally what we're seeing now, is these tech companies make decisions like that. And I don't know. There's no winning. It's not good either way. And unfortunately, we're just going to continue to see this trend of, the major corporations come in and try to conglomerize and own everything in the space. And they're trying to regain control of the narrative again, because they're losing. The old guard, the old powers that be, the people who have been in control of this country and this planet for, possibly hundreds of years, they're losing power because of the internet. And so they're doing everything they can right now through the major corporations, through investing in these companies, through putting CEOs in positions of power to change the business models of major platforms like this. Are doing everything they can to get their power back. And they're going to spend billions of dollars to do it. And they don't care about content creators. They don't care if thousands or millions of people lose their ability to make an income. They don't care. All they care about is, can they control the masses? And if YouTube wants that money and they want that Hollywood prestige, they're going to have to basically cut everyone off and become the Netflix. And that's what they're doing.
Well, don't you kind of find that like ironic that, TikTok, the Chinese owned media conglomerate, that's like, it censors less than the American like Twitter and Facebook. Like, isn't that kind of funny when you think about it that way? Like, the left or the West, that's supposed to be, we're free speech. We have this sort of liberal tradition of, we, disagree with stuff, but we still allow it. TikTok and like just in general, the Chinese, they censor, their media is probably less biased than ours. And that's saying, they have their problems, definitely. The Chinese Communist Party, they're definitely up over there, but they're more free in some ways than we are,
In some ways, their media is controlled. It's state media, so it's not owned by billionaires. That's the only. Well, okay, it is owned by billionaires, but it's a different kind of billionaire, because it's a billionaire that's also connected to the state and the government. Whereas the billionaires in the United States don't have to necessarily answer to their government, or in some cases they just straight up lie to their government, like what all the major tech CEOs did when they all got called in front of Congress. So, you still have ultimately an authority who's in a position of power, whether it's the state or a private billionaire, and it's hard to say, because in China, the one advantage is a private billionaire cannot push an agenda unless they have the state's approval. So they do have an advantage from that degree. At the same time, though, it's still state-controlled media, which is even more controlled than what happens in the United States. At least in the United States, you and I can have this conversation right now. We put it on the internet, and it's kind of up to us to see if we can get a following. Whereas in China, that could end you up in a black site and killed. So, there is a difference there, of course.
For now.
At the same time, they've definitely done things in the United States now to make sure that no one listens to this. So that, it's an unfair game that's rigged, much like the political system. And, they're doing everything they can to rig the internet. It's not working because it's just code, and people will always find a way to get information out there. But, at the same time, I would argue that, the United States is still more free, but that also has its own set of problems, because there are so many people who are trying to influence, the last remaining news channels and, wherever they're able to get messaging out. And part of that is Hollywood. The movies we watch and the television programming that we watch is all designed to push political agendas. It's to create a disassociation from reality so that people start to see things and predictive programming, so that they start to see that in their real world. And then they start to be influenced to believe, oh, this is the way things need to be because that's what I saw on some television show. So that is happening in the United States, that happens in China, but The difference is, you know, in the United States, it's a bunch of private billionaires pushing a variety of agendas, versus in China, it's one state-controlled entity who's controlling everything. And if you go against the state, you're screwed. So there is that major point of difference. At the same time, you'll probably get slightly more honest information when it comes to certain things from a state-controlled media that you might not get from a private media that we have in the United States. And that just simply has to do with the fact that they're willing to have a certain level of transparency, whereas in the United States, we don't really have any obligation to have transparency anymore. So, you know, ethics when it comes to journalism and, you know, doing the right thing and not being biased, I mean, that's pretty much dead here now. It's a myth at this point. So that we ever even really had unbiased journalists. I mean, you could argue back in the day, maybe there was in the 30s, 40s, and 50s, but you know, since the advent of television, it's a different world.
Look all the way back to the Spanish-American War, like the whole, I think, was it Lusitania? That whole thing was faked. That was a fake news, yellow journalism piece that got us into a war. It was found out to be a boiler that actually blew up the ship. Like has the news really ever been truly unbiased? You know, probably not. But real quick,
like I said, it's probably a myth. It's probably always been biased.
But yeah, real quick, I kind of want to go back to.
Well, I mean, sorry. Go ahead.
I kind of want to go back to YouTube about something real quick. As you probably know, YouTube has been fined $170 million for violating children's privacy laws. With ads targeting kids. Yeah, and I saw this video. I think it was there's some like gaming channels.
Yeah, Game Theory.
Yeah, Game Theory. I used to like them, but you know they kind of gone to crap recently. But anyways, you know, like the effects of this lawsuit, like, you know, that could actually affect YouTube in a lot of really scary ways. I don't know if you ever had to deal with this. I think all YouTube channels had to go and like sign something saying if it's for kids or not.
Yeah, like when you upload a video now, you have to, there's like a big banner that comes up and saying that their policies were changed, and now when you do upload something, you have to say if it's for kids or if it's for not.
And it's kind of funny too, because like right before then they were trying to go and make everything super, you know, safe and PC, but like now, like I've heard like a lot of major YouTubers are considering, you know, just putting in a string of expletives at the beginning to go and make sure it won't be considered a kids channel, because, you know, like this could have significant effects on monetization, because targeted ads, from what I understand, that's like 90% of where your money comes from. You know, have you heard anything about this?
Yeah, so unfortunately, the problem is, you know, what we're seeing on the surface level with the policy changes, and unfortunately the reality of the situation are two very different things. So part of the main issue, and this has been an issue with internet platforms for a long time, is child pornography and human trafficking and all of these other things that are happening on these platforms.
Yeah.
And YouTube, by far, is probably the worst offender of this, probably in the history of the internet. And Google and YouTube have never been able to solve this problem. And it's been a problem since day one. And they've literally banned other websites from the internet, from search results, from you know, being able to, you know, show up when you Google them, because of this same problem that they themselves have on a much more massive scale. So, like, if you take Tumblr, for example, Tumblr had a major like adult content section, and also a major pedophile and child pornography issue. And people were actually using Tumblr to human traffic and sell children and do all these horrible things. And it was also happening on YouTube. So they would use secret language, coded words, all this stuff to avoid detection and all that kind of thing. And so YouTube, in enabling these policies, they're saying, oh, we're finally addressing this problem. But at the same time, they're also using these policies to change their business model. And it goes right back to the conversation we were just having before. They're using this almost as a guise to basically eliminate most content creators, because now they can just say, oh, well, your content's not child friendly, therefore your content's adult, and because your content's adult, it no longer, can receive monetization, and it isn't viable for advertisers, and you're gone. So unfortunately, they're kind of implementing this rule to, in a weird way, like it kind of helps probably the pedophiles and the people who are using YouTube in this sinister way, because now they can actually specifically create child-friendly content, and that's going to get recommended, and it's going to take you down the rabbit hole even further into this really screwed up, perverse world. And now that content's actually going to be protected by YouTube, which doesn't make any sense, but in someone's screwed up head in Silicon Valley, it does. And then they're going to punish everyone who wasn't making child-friendly content anyways. And now all of a sudden they're going to get demonetized for something they weren't producing in the first place. So unfortunately, I think these rules are kind of like a bait and switch. It's like, oh, we're implementing these new rules to protect these children. But I think the reality is it has more to do with the other conversation we had about business models and how they're pivoting and how they basically want to be the next Netflix. And they're just using a problem they've always had as a justification for making the decisions that they're making now. I'm sure the lawsuits probably influenced this to some degree.
Oh, yeah.
I'm sure, that was another reason for them to do this. But unfortunately, just like politics, it's like, this is the look over there, when right behind them, the problems actually happen.
I don't like that. I like that. It's not what you said. What you said, you hit the nail on the head. But like, no, I don't like that. We are living in a world now where when they roll out some new terms of service or something like that, now I'm like, what's the real reason that they're passing this versus, oh, that makes sense. That's what. Now it's like, I trust them about as much as I trust our politicians. So it's like, oh, you're passing you're pushing some new agenda. What's the real reason behind that? Like, I hate that. I just hate that.
So think about it. If only certain channels can target children and can run ads, and anything else is no longer gets recommended, I mean, they're now in control of the next generation of users and what they see and what agendas can be pushed on those children. It's all about control. So, unfortunately, I don't think this is going to solve the pedophile problem. I don't think this is going to solve the human trafficking problem. I think this, unfortunately, is an attempt for the elites, or the powers that be, or whatever the hell you want to call them, to get control over the next generation's minds, because the kids sit there obsessively on YouTube watching videos all day, and that's the only way they can reach them. So they're making rules so that they get to be in control of what those children see, so that they get to basically brainwash the next generation. That's probably the intention behind these rules.
Yeah. Well,
it's sad.
Yeah.
And it's tragic, and it's going to screw up a whole new generation of kids.
Well, hopefully in alternative forms that's actually successful, but I'm even pessimistic on that front, to be honest. But we'll see how things go.
It's going to take time.
Yeah, that's the thing. It takes a long time.
I mean, there is. Well, I mean, there have been changes that have been happening. I mean, look, sites like Patreon and Subscribestar have been blowing up since then. Like, I mean, there are things that are happening because of this. Is it the answer? Probably not, but you could definitely tell things are moving in another direction. Like, you just tell
rapidly, and someone will come in like TikTok, and will take control of a large segment of the internet video network that's out there. I mean, there's going to be another user-generated content video network. There has to be. It's always going to be a thing that people are going to want to participate in. It's going to look different because the next generation of users are only really going to use the internet on a smartphone. So we're seeing that shift happening as well, more and more. People forget that, ultimately at the end of the day, like, we're now in a world where the majority of people access the internet from their smartphone, and that is the majority of clicks and views. So the web unfortunately is no longer, people on a laptop or a desktop computer. And in fact, as time goes on, there's going to be less and less computer users and more mobile users. So the next generation is going to have less and less access to computers, and they're going to have more and more access to controlled mobile devices that can only access certain things. So there will at some point be a backlash from the next generation, and they're going to wake up. They're going to go, I don't want this anymore. I don't want to use the same devices and the same networks and stuff as my parents. So we may even see a generation that's going to come up soon, or maybe it's already starting to happen, that's just so not interested in any of this tech crap. They're just going to be like, nope, I want to go outside and play. There's a very real possibility that there will be another generation that just doesn't care about technology or the internet.
Yeah, I agree. We'll keep following this, and maybe we'll have more conversations about this, but we've held you for an hour. It was a great conversation and a lot of fun, but we'll let you go now. But before we do that, where can people find you on all these various platforms?
You can find me on all of them, but I'm probably shadow banned.
Yeah.
So I'm on Twitter at Trent Lapinski. I have a podcast that's called Tech Post. I have not been updating it recently, but I'm hoping to start getting some content back up there soon. You can find me on Facebook at Trent Lapinski, and you can find me on most of the social networks under my real name. So that's how you can find me. But again, oh man, I don't know if you're going to be able to hear from me, because lately my reach has declined significantly, despite the fact that my followers have increased.
That's I kid you not, that feels like the exact same thing we've been happening on our channel, because we've had a huge subscriber jump because we started uploading some videos related to the Sargon of Akkad event we had here at Penn Stakes. We did an interview with him on the radio, so our subscriber count jumped up, and it's, we had more views and whatnot after that, but recently it just feels like it just dropped. It's so weird.
They're turning us off, and they're dialing it down for the 2020 election, because they don't want what happened last time to happen again. And unfortunately, what they're just going to do is they're going to push people off these platforms, and they're going to go somewhere else. So, that's the reality of what's happening, is we're all getting shadow banned, and we're all losing our reach. And we all played this game thinking, oh, if I get, X amount of followers, I'll continue to be able to do this. And now they're just dialing back our reach.
Well, I think Milo puts it best when he says we need to start creating our own platforms. Like Gavin McGinnis with Free Speech TV, stuff like that. We need to start creating our own platforms, because these platforms are not a sustainable future for us at all.
Good luck with that.
Yeah, I agree. But at the same time, the hosting of where all this stuff gets hosted and the monopoly that happens in the hosting space, they can just turn you off. I mean, the majority of the internet is powered by AWS. That's just the reality of it.
Amazon.
And that's Amazon.
Mm-hmm.
And, the rest are using Microsoft or Google. And that is the cloud. So we almost need to create what needs to happen is actually at the infrastructure layer. We need to create a new cloud that's decentralized that they can't turn off.
Mm-hmm.
And then we need to build applications and platforms on top of that new infrastructure. Because if you build it on top of Apple or Google or any of these companies, they're just going to turn you off if they don't like you. And they've done it before. They did it to Alex Jones. So they'll do it again. So, yeah, we got to basically have to go create a new internet. That's ultimately what has to happen first. And there are companies and there are projects out there in the blockchain space, in the post-blockchain space. There's some interesting stuff. There's one project in particular that comes to mind called Holochain. And that's basically what they're building. They're building a decentralized internet. So, that's what has to happen next, so that we can get rid of our dependence on all these major tech companies.
Well, fascinating conversation as always. Thank you so much for coming on. We really appreciate it. It's, hard to have, find some good insight like this, but you've provided some of the best insight we've heard on, not only just the tech companies, but just how terrible California is and why nobody should move there at all.
Yeah, it's crazy. We didn't even get into like the resurgence of the plague or typhus.
Oh my God, Jesus!
Only in California.
Yeah, yeah. You think that would just be a meme, but no, it's true. I don't doubt it for a second.
It's some weird times. So, but thank you for having me on. It's been a pleasure.
Of course, thank you.
All right, take care, Trent.
Yeah, take care.
Yeah, great
Take care.
talking to you. Jeez, California, that sounds like the West Coast Florida.
Yeah, I know. Well, I don't even think Florida's like that crazy. At least Florida goes red occasionally.
Nah, you ever see the people down there? Man, Florida man is a
Florida
meme.
man.
Like, I just can't believe like some of the stuff I hear. It's like Florida man feeds meth to squirrels to create attack squirrels. Florida man's pooping on like cars driving in the intersection by hanging off a stoplight. Like, there's crazy things. Like,
Dude, California is becoming India. They are. Like, it's overpopulated.
Yeah, the poop streets.
It's like there's the people
Yeah.
pooping on the streets and in the public. Like,
Well, at
what
least
in the heck?
India's on an upward turn. Like California's just on a downward turn.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
untamed liberalism. That's what's causing it. Because it's like, the whole pooping thing, it all started when they decriminalized pooping on the street. Because they thought it was like,
Wait, they decriminalized it.
yeah, it used to be against the law to go and, plop one on
Jesus
the street.
Christ.
And then they were like, oh, that's racist. It's anti-poor. Let's
It's
stop this.
anti-poor.
And then this is what happens. Places that have laws, you can get arrested. You can get, public defecation laws. That's a thing. But in California, they thought it was racist, so they got rid of it, and now they have poop streets and plague.
Well, did you hear that people are calling? We were looking at this a bit earlier. Have you seen that Peloton ad that was airing during Thanksgiving, Phil?
I did.
Yeah, I actually
I
saw
did.
it on TV.
I didn't think there was that. Yeah, I don't know what the controversy is. Like, I watched it. I didn't think there was anything wrong with it, but apparently people on Twitter are getting ticked off again.
Well, when I saw it, the only thing that was off-putting was like the girl in the ad looked like a bit scared in one of the shots. I was like, oh, that's a funny face. That's all I thought was like, oh, this just looks a bit odd. But apparently people were saying it's sexist and, quote, a symbol of the patriarchy because the husband was gifting his wife an exercise bike.
How dare he want an attractive wife?
Yeah, well,
if the wife gave, the fat husband a exercise bike, that'd be okay. It's like, you ever
such
see
a
that?
double standard.
No, you ever see that in television shows? It's
Yeah.
like you always have like the Homer Simpson man.
I was gonna say the
You
Homer
always
Simpson,
have the Homer Simpson,
dumb
the Peter
fat
Griffin.
guy.
They're always dumb.
beer
They're always
belly.
fat. They're always like an A, and the woman's always perfect. The only one that's like different than that would be King of the Hill, and that that's a rarity.
But what's wrong with getting a woman an exercise bike?
Yeah, because
Like,
they
literally,
want
what's
women to
wrong
be
with it?
perfect. They want women to be perfect on these things. They expect them to be, femininity, and femininity is what's in right now. The only
But
thing
it's
that'd
the
be even.
patriarchy.
I hate.
It's the patriarchy. Like, I hate hearing about the patriarchy. Like, how about you just let women be women, right? And some women want to be housewives. Some people want that house life.
Some
and,
people want to
the
lose
family
weight.
life
They
and all
don't want to
that
be a
stuff.
fat ass all their life.
Who wants to be fat? No one.
Look,
There's probably some people. You have a couple people out there that like have that
and
feeding
maybe
fetish.
If
And they
wanna
die
be
at like
skinny,
30.
they could be skinny. If they want to be big, they could be big. Whatever. It's like there's so much, like who cares? Who cares? If that's something if getting in shape is something you want to do, go for it, and that's okay. But like this whole getting outraged on Twitter because of you have some weird obsession with stuff that doesn't exist.
I just
Please
hate this
stop.
cancel culture, man. What was it? I saw the other week or a couple days ago, there was like this one company that got really pissed off that people are getting married on plantations or something.
What?
Yeah, like, you ever see those like...
Oh, it's like okay. I was looking at this on the wedding app. You can do weddings in like barns and mansions and
Yeah.
whatnot. So I guess that's what people in the South do. 'Cause that's what they
people,
have.
Some people like that stuff. They look beautiful. And then they had this like one thing saying, "Oh, it's like evil and racist," and they like kept complaining until they got like I think Pinterest and something else to go and like to significantly lower the reach of those websites. Or not the websites, like the plantation things, because they think.
Would they be fine with a black couple doing it on plantation?
I don't know. They'd probably call it internalized racism. But and then they said for the other ones that didn't do anything, they told them that they were going to start targeting their advertisers. Like, why do they have to do that? Like, I really hate people who just go after advertisers like that. Like, it really just like these people need to be, just stop. Like, they need to go and make. I don't know. Like, maybe advertisers just need to toughen up. And just say, you can complain because they're not. No one like look at Chick-fil-A. They had people, throwing all sorts of boycotting, and they grew bigger than they ever were. And then, now they just decided to go and become complete cuckolds. But for the longest time, they were actually doing better when they were under sanctions.
Yeah, and the other thing too that's crazy is that you can't do anything anymore without fear of the mob just coming after you, after your advertisers, after all these things. Like, nothing is safe anymore. Like an ad of just giving a Peloton exercise bike to your wife is considered too much today. Too much. And the actress, I think, has moved on to another company because of the backlash, but it's, I mean, like, you think sometimes these things are a joke, but every time you see a joke about stuff like, remember that video that went around about MSNBC, like, reporting on Keck? Like, yeah. That sort of stuff you look at and you don't even know if it's fake or not because you could see them doing stupid, crap like this.
That's why fake news is so, like, big now because these companies will go and do anything that they think will get money, that they'll think will get views, that they think will generate outrage. Like, It is gone, like, we literally live in clown world. Like, people will just do the stupidest things and make the stupidest stories. It's like, oh, Donald Trump farted once. Oh, is impeachable? Is his mental health okay? So you get that.
Well, Eric Swalwell farted, and nobody's saying anything about him.
Oh my God, that was hilarious.
That was funny, and they kept denying it. They're like, it's a cup moving. Look.
Oh, like honestly,
cups don't make that noise.
I don't give a crap if someone farted. Like, that's not good, but I can understand. But still, they're making such a big deal over like denying, like he's just denying it. Like, dude, just fess up. Say it a burrito or something.
I had a hot bowl of chili for lunch.
Yeah, those enchiladas. Dang it.
I had a big bowl of chili for. Remember when Alex Jones said that, like, in his custody hearing? He couldn't remember something.
Oh, yeah,
and his excuse was, I had a big bowl of chili for lunch, sorry.
If Donald Trump did that, though, there'd be a hearing about it.
He'd be impeached.
Was he trying to go and like offend someone? Was this
He's culture appropriating Mexican food?
Was this an act of chemical
violence?
Warfare?
Was he dog whistling?
Was it chemical warfare? Was he trying to go and nasally assault? Was he trying to nasally assault the CNN reporter? Dude, that would be funny as crap though. If you
can meme that in reality. They're trying to meme into reality that Santa hats are racist by putting it on all like these avatar profile pics.
Oh yeah, like I mean they've done it before. They did that the OK sign.
I know.
And like it's become something like someone literally lost their job over it.
Yeah, that was stupid.
Because people are, they literally made the meme into reality. Like you can literally do it with any symbol now. You could even, they tried doing it with the hashtag. They changed it to the fashtag. And I hope they just start doing stuff like that because people will stop paying attention once they go that far off the rails. Like your average person, they're probably not going to know some of these like more obscure things. You're like, okay, I can understand that. But when you start seeing like, drinking milk's racist, the OK sign's racist.
All like over the line.
Santa hat's racist. Going to church is racist. Like everything, and like that's when the normies will literally start to go and rise up and say, "Hey, I don't know about
normies
this.
Rise up."
I think that's what really need to happen.
Normie uprising.
Like they start, the what's it called, accelerationism. That's what you need to go and do. Just make even more bizarre stuff start getting banned. You get your average Joe, like Ben Shapiro banned from everything.
No, that's like what Miles was talking about on the show, is that you need to get those people banned, and those people start caring, and then their followers will start caring.
Yeah, get Fox taken off the news, and that will literally get people to rise up. Like them taken, like get Comcast to blacklist, and like start complaining about that. You know, I don't want that to happen, but if you want change to happen, that's what you have.
Needs. It's what it's going to take. But let's talk about something fun that happened here at Penn State that I know you guys were in the loop on too. But two of us here got to attend it. Was the Socialists here, the United Socialists. They had a town hall discussion, they called it, on capitalism and mental health. T here, can I call you T still? I guess that's a yes. She was in the library, and she saw this flyer that said, United Socialists at PSU present capitalism and mental health, town hall discussion, Thursday, December 5th, yada, yada, yada. So we're like, oh, we got to go to this. This is right up our alley. It was a publicly advertised event, and I posted something in our Turning Point USA chapter group me about, like, hey, if anyone wants to come, like this message. And we got overwhelming 20 likes on it. So we're like, yeah, we're going to this thing. And then I got an email, literally like a day later, from the United Socialist president. She emailed me, and she said the following. She said, hello, I understand Turning Point plans to attend our mental health hall on Thursday, yada, 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 yada. And she said, I hesitate to write this email because I feel that will be used against us as evidence of our unwillingness to engage in civil debate with your organization. Why'd you send the email?
Yeah, I mean, you're pretty. You hit that on the nose.
Yeah.
Just because you try to preempt something doesn't mean it's not true. It's like, oh, if I go and punch you in the face, I know you're gonna want to hit me back.
but
wait, there's more.
And then she says, however, our town halls are not the space for heated debates. Why is she assuming we're gonna get into a heated debate?
Okay, what do you mean by town hall? Like,
what do you do there?
What's the definition of a town hall? Like, other than like an actual hall in the town, like an actual verbal town hall. It's always there is a discussion. That's the point of a town hall. If it's not discussion, you're just having a lecture.
Well, according to Google, a town hall is an event in which a politician or public figure answers questions from members of the public.
Oh, so
so there's got to be Q&A.
Yeah, it's a Q&A. That is by de facto or de jure. There is some sort of audience and panelists interaction.
Yeah, well, when we got there, they said you can't ask questions. They said that to us.
Okay, well, that's great. They literally lied. They falsely advertised.
It's not a town hall.
Yeah.
Basically, it's not a town hall.
No, it's just a presentation.
You said it was a town hall. You didn't take Q&A. It's not a town hall. So you're full of duty. That's basically
they're lying. They're
socialist president.
They are straight up lying. Surprise, surprise, a socialist lies. That happens every time a bell rings. A socialist, sells you some bull crap. That's their entire ideology, and that's funny too. You taking this whole thing. It's like, oh, a socialist is going to tell you about capitalism. What the hell do they know about capitalism?
They're experts. They've read books on theory.
Yeah, that'd be like asking a Muslim on their alcohol preferences.
Thank God. They need to thank their stars and stripes that I was not there. They need to thank, because look, Dictator Phil would have been there, and
he brought all his guns, metaphorically.
I've worked in mental health, and I know T's a psychology major.
Yeah, she is.
And well, I know me personally, I would have given him hell. I would have.
Well, here's the other thing too. What's the point of that juxtaposition, capitalism and mental health? That'd be like, oh, we're going to talk about, hamburgers and surfing. Or like, airplanes and video games. It's just like so random. Like, why would they pick that?
Well, I was confused too, but on their Facebook event, which they posted like a day before the event, which was like terrible. Yeah, they're very on the ball here. They're well prepared at getting the attention of everyone. These people are terrible at planning and organizing, which I'll talk about the actual event. But it was something about how like capitalism like affects your mental health was the idea of it. Which,
What?
Yeah, I know. They drew some, crazy parallels, which we'll get into.
Oh, you think that's bad? Well, look at socialism's effect on people's mental health. When they literally live in a country where you can't go and do so many things, but you can see like right across the border, right across the Berlin Wall, there's people who are actually doing pretty good.
Yeah.
You try to go over and do anything, you get like 260 rubles a month. What can you really do with that when it costs like 100 rubles for a bottle of vodka?
Well, in the rest of the email that I was reading a bit there, she said, they, as in town halls, are meant to be collaborative discussions, and I believe I am justified in assuming that you do not plan on engaging with our ideas in good faith.
What the hell do you mean by good faith?
What
does a socialist even know about
faith?
What does a godless socialist know about faith? They don't even know what faith is. There has not been a single socialist president or whatever, a chairman, I don't know what the hell they have in the Soviet Union. They do not have faith. They literally go in there, they go and say, I'm for the people, and they go and they line their own pockets. That's all they do. They do not, their entire philosophy is not in good faith.
Why do they assume we'd be doing things in bad faith? They assume the worst of us.
What do they even mean by this?
We are nowhere. I'm flattered by this. They think we're so awful. We're so destructive, like these evil monsters. No, we're not that big and bad.
What do they mean this bad faith? I'm going to go. What do they think
ask
you're
a
going to
question.
do? Well, what do they think you're going to do? Like, I'm going to say a bad word. We're going to
gaslight you.
We're going to go and we're going to dox you in the meeting, or we're going to go and take tiki torches.
We're going to protest you guys. Oh, wait, they did that to us.
Like, what did they do? They literally did every single thing that they are accusing you of doing. They are so, like, what was it, refraction or whatever? What's the term for that?
They literally
you do the stuff where they do the stuff
projection.
Projection. That's all they're doing, because they did their thing in bad faith. They tore down your posters.
Yeah, they tore down our posters. They called for our organization to be dechartered and cut all the funding to and basically shut down. And they also protested our event with slanderous lies. That's oxymoron.
You should release a statement and go and say, we respect the right for them to have these stupid town halls, even though they tried to, they reported me to our organization.
Yeah, we'll get to that. No spoilers, because it gets better. Because after this email, they say at the bomb village, we're still a paragraph and a half into this. They finally got to the point, which was, I would like to appeal to your sense of common decency. They always love doing that.
Yeah, common decency.
Well, they're common decency when they try to get you defunded. Yeah, these guys can take a hike. They don't know anything about common decency. They just know how
to... They want to shut down. Yeah, very commonly decent. We don't want to deplatform your speakers. We just want to shut you down.
Yeah. No. They wanted to appeal to your sense of common decency.
These people...
They don't have common decency. They just wanted you to appeal to your...
Yeah.
You should go and say, thank you for saying this to me after what you guys did to my organization and try to get shut down. Yeah, I don't know about your appeals to whatever decency. At this point, you kind of poison the well.
Well, here's where it gets the best. This is the best part. And after they say they want to appeal our sense of common decency and respectfully request that your organization refrain from attending our event. Let me know if you have any further questions.
That's an invitation right there.
Yeah, it
when
is.
You say don't come to our thing, okay? What do you think's going to happen?
Oh, we're going to come. Seriously, and we're going to come in mass. We're going to bring everyone. That's what we did. It's so crazy because, I'm not going to lie, I didn't expect this. But it's a publicly advertised town hall, and they registered on 25 Live, which is the room booking service, as a public event open to the public. They cannot deny anyone entry. What nerve do they have telling us not to come? And yet, we let them come to our speaking event, even though they totally lied and slandered Sargon, calling him a pedophile, totally just lied out the wazoo. But we said, hey, you can still come in. So I replied, a little cheeky, I might add. I said, Turning Point USA will attend this publicly advertised, quote, town hall discussion, unquote. We will be civil and hopefully engage in a productive conversation like we always do. If you want, we can talk one-on-one afterwards. See you then.
Did they respond to that?
No, they didn't. They didn't know what to do with that.
They want to go and talk all this big stuff and use all this flowery language, and they want to go sound like they're little, like,
they're
the
right
chairman.
here. Yeah.
They sound like a chairman, Chairman Mao over there. It's like, oh, I'm going to make this look all legalese and professional. Like, oh, I don't know, but I don't think you guys should come. I'm going to go and appeal to your common decency.
No, you're not. It's like,
oh, yeah, it's decent just not show up to go, these people's events. Yeah, how's that decent? I'm sorry you guys can't hold an argument to go and save your life.
Well, but it gets better. The day before the event, the plot thickens. I get an email that says, Office of Student Conduct. And I'm like, uh-oh.
Sticky.
I'm like, we haven't done anything yet. Well, like, what happened? And it said, after a bunch of things, it says, I'm reaching out to you because our office received a referral for Turning Point last night. It was a concern raised by another student in reference to an interaction online with members of Turning Point and the other organization, and a concern about an event on campus this week. I'm like, oh boy, I know what this is about.
Well, they went and tell on you, Mommy, he came and I told him not to come.
Well, they are so childish and pathetic. I mean, look, I don't even know what they're talking about. I talked to their president afterwards, after this event. I still don't know what this is about. We're just going to meet up hopefully soon. But it's absolutely pathetic, childish, and unproductive, and potentially dangerous to report somebody to an entire organization to code of conduct for doing nothing wrong. We have done nothing. I've said nothing wrong. I just posted about this in our group, me saying, hey, this is coming up. You guys want to come? They said yes. I said, okay, we're going to go. I didn't say anything else. I didn't incite anyone to be violent. I didn't incite anyone to be disruptive.
You didn't even incite them to go and tear down your posters.
No, I did not.
You did not do that. Look at them.
By attending their event, we upped their group attendance.
We doubled it.
Their attendance by that. Like,
oh, yeah.
They
should be happy.
Real thing you should be doing. The real thing they should be saying is, "Thank you, Sean, for allowing your people to come attend our event."
You see,
instead of
Phil.
I don't. What's up?
You are a kind soul just like me. You know what's going on here. You are being, you're looking at it from the positive angle because they gave our event so much free advertising for Sargon Hunter. I was so thankful that I wanted to advertise theirs in our group me. But did they appreciate that? No. You did, but they didn't.
We try to do the nice thing, and what does it get us?
I know. It's a shame.
I mean, it's helped us out quite a bit, though, to be honest.
Yeah, it was pretty bad. That I didn't expect this. I mean, the whole hostility from the other side has been heightened so much since that Sargon event, and it's because
they're losing.
They're losing. They know. This is the thing I tell people all the time. Is you will see that the left always shuts down the most effective voices. They don't go after the people that are irrelevant and totally ineffective, like Richard Spencer. Nobody cares about him. Nobody really follows him. He doesn't have any sort of, real political momentum and power. He's nothing.
He's a straw man.
And what is he? He's still on Twitter. But Milo, Alex Jones, Roger Stone, Gavin McGinnis, all banned. All the effective people. And it's the same thing here with us. We are the only right-wing club that's actually doing stuff on campus. We're the only conservative group that's actually doing stuff. It's actually bringing speakers and packing the house and creating controversy and interest and excitement. What are the college Dems doing? Nothing. This is the only thing the socialists have done to my knowledge. I mean, the college Dems did some climate change debate that no one showed up to, that no one cared about.
Well, probably the college Republicans went up there to go and pretend they're smart.
They had the college Republicans and the college Independents both in the debate. They weren't monitoring the CIs. Yeah. They were in the debate.
It must have been so low energy. Jeb Bush would have been like, oh.
It would put Jeb Bush to high energy levels.
Oh my god! They're just so boring. These stupid debates. Nothing.
Ours
ever
was
gets
exciting.
Done. No one cares.
The Yang Gang TPUSA one. People came out to that. There was pizza. Everybody was having fun. That was a good debate. But if these people really had talent, if they really had ability, they'd be going out there doing their own stuff. They'd be having their own events. They'd be successful. But they have nothing. So instead, they try to tear anyone else down successful and bring them to their level. And that's where we are today.
I don't know, I just feel like the college Republicans over here, they don't really have too much principles. I feel it's like, oh, we're Republicans, but we're not really Republicans. We just kind of don't want to offend anyone. We don't really have principles, but we don't like taxes. So it's like we're kind of libertarian, but we don't want to call ourselves that because Daddy wouldn't be very happy. It's all about like
it's amazing.
It's
amazing what we do. Like it's amazing what Turning Point does. When you talk about the college Dems have resources, they have the UPUA on their side. All of the stuff that they have is on their side, and yet we're still doing more than they are.
Yeah.
Like, it's incredible.
And
it's
wait till next semester. Oh my God.
Oh yeah.
You need to go and start going to more of these people's events. Just have like a...
But they don't have any events. This is like the only one.
I'm sure you have some other fringe group holding these stupid events. Maybe it's not the Socialist. Maybe it'll be like the Students for Bernie or something. Or like just look at those little flyers. I remember like, what was it? The debate club. Good Lord. They had some sort of like gun control debate the one year with Oxford students. That was so cringe.
I remember that. Yeah. And you couldn't ask certain questions. Remember when you tried to ask a question? They were like, nah.
No, that was a different one. I think this was a year before.
Oh, yeah, the one we were doing was about Brexit.
Yeah, like it was so stupid. Like, because they both argued for gun control in different ways. It was supposed to be like, you could argue, like, I was like, there's two ways to do this, but they just went when two liberals, like, who agree on something, they just, like, find ways to disagree with. It was like,
And, like, minutia.
Yeah, it's just like the names. It's like, oh, we're going to have, gun control, but we're going to do it with the Second Amendment and without the Second Amendment. Like they found some sort of loophole because it was like, you had to argue for or against the Second Amendment. And I think our team got 4 and they were full of liberals. And they were like, oh, we're going to go and, ban guns within the confines of the Second Amendment. And they found a way to somehow do it. It was just like, God, it was so cringe.
Well, speaking of cringe, let's take a look. I took some pictures at the event for us to look at since you guys had the unfortunate inconvenience of not being able to go. But they're a little bit out of order here, so bear with me on this. Because my phone uploaded them funny, but this one picture here shows like the whole, like layout of it. Like, okay, funny thing was the socialists were on the left side of the room and all of us conservatives were on the right side of the room appropriately. We had 30 of us there at one point and they had 25 of them there. We outnumbered them at their own stuff. That was just funny. Look, they have on their podium a transgender Antifa flag. Like, what is this?
Oh my God!
Good Lord, these people call themselves socialists.
Oh my God!
If they were the Soviet Union or Maoist China or Cuba, they would be the first to go.
Yeah,
they would not last a second. They go and have these communist signs and solidarity. They would be the first to go. Like even before the capitalists, they'd be like, okay, they had a term for in the Soviet Union, like failures of society or like dregs of society.
Yeah.
And they go to Siberia.
Well, they always, they always had that flag when they were tabling. But yeah,
a wise man once told me that everybody thinks they're a warrior until the real warriors enter the building. Like,
yeah, that's true.
And this is what they are. They talk a good game. They're all, they attack. They verbally attack. They write complaints and all that stuff. And then when we show up, they kind of, they kind of crawl into their shell.
No, and I hate to put it this way, but everybody has these stereotypes of what socialists look like or what these snowflake SJW people look like. Oh my God.
Well, see,
every one of them fit the stereotype. It was like, oh God.
Stereotypes exist, and there's usually a reason for them.
Yeah.
Like, you came out from somewhere. Not all of them are true, but, it's stuff like this. It's like, yeah.
Well, we'll go over their first slide, which I know T will have a few things to say. It's individualism.
I will too.
Oh, yeah, you will. That's true.
Yep.
Individualism and psychology. And they put like a bunch of quotes on there. Like, here's the thing. Their slides are just filled with text. Like, it's too much to comprehend.
They don't know how to do style. They just want to go and just run the stuff on there. It's patriarchy, or it's capitalist to go and put their value into time.
Yeah.
To actually make it look good.
Do you guys see anything on there that's glaringly
I need
like?
to go and look on my phone. My eyes are.
Oh, you can't see that far.
Well, it's
I think they were attacking They were trying to take a pop shot at Big Pharma, which
I was going to say Big.
I'm sorry. Yeah. So I mean, here's the thing. Does Big Pharma do things that are,
They can be pretty dirty.
Not the cleanest?
Yeah.
They can be pretty dirty, but here, these are people that don't want to admit that there are necessary evils in this world. And yes, do they do shady stuff sometimes? Probably. But the capitalism has created this pharmaceutical development that is unparalleled to anything ever. Like, you look at these socialist countries, do they develop pharmaceuticals? No. In fact, a lot of these socialist countries, you got China, all these other countries, right? A lot of them just reverse engineer the stuff that's already created in the United States and then create generic models that aren't as good because their reverse engineering is bad, but that's neither here nor there. But that's what they do. There's no development. So and it's like, oh, they have standardized health. They have universal health care, I guess, if you want to call it that. But it's the quality is so poor. It's not even worth having. It's like, oh, I'm sick. Oh, you're probably gonna die. Sorry.
Oh my God.
Did you find the Joker slide?
Yeah. Did you see that?
Yeah.
That is some cringe. Like the one thing today, I put on my Joker makeup and asked Veronica to start a worker co-op with me. She laughed at me and told me I was a stupid rad lib, and the heck of capitalism was a firm itself, not that the firm has a boss. Then Chad threw a copy of Capital at me and told me to actually read Marx. Welcome to my
dark twisted fantasy.
Oh my God! Like, they are literally putting like Chad Virgin meme speak into the, like, what is this supposed
meme
to be?
lingo.
What is supposed to be a town hall, a professional event? They have like stupid memes of Joker. No. And a blue background that looks something out of like, Microsoft.
Windows XP,
like,
blue screen
not
death.
even not even Windows XP. It's just like Windows 3, like the blue window. Like, good Lord, learn how to, like...
No, and it was funny, was they called it The Joker. The movie's just called Joker. And they realized that mistake midway, and so they started editing the PowerPoint. Look, I have an image of it. They started editing the PowerPoint live and calling it...
These people are so stupid.
And then they called it Le Joker.
Le Joker.
I was like, oh, wow,
this is
funny.
Some art, they want to pretend it's like some sort of, like, art house remake.
Yeah, it was just so stupid. And then the third slide is the one with you'll see like the Jordan Peterson lobster meme. Like, they were attacking like Peterson one thing. They call it capitalist realism. It's like race realism, but about capitalism, I guess. And postmodernity as the dominant ideology of late stage capitalism.
Late stage capitalism. I hate these stupid stages. Oh, use the stage of capitalism. Ooh. Yeah. Dude, look at communism. Look at late stage communism. It just dies. It becomes capitalism.
Well, and they start talking about suicide, and they were saying that places that had more religion or more religious people commit suicide more.
Oh yeah, like Japan and China.
Yeah, that's what I instantly thought. It was like China.
Oh yeah,
they put nets outside factories.
They must
be
suicide. Very religious in China. In Japan. Both those places. Those Chinese and Japanese, they really there are a lot of very religious fanatics in those countries. Gotta be careful.
And what were you saying in your class? They would talk about suicide rates among religious people. Like, what were they saying about that?
This is just from my developmental psych class I've taken in Abington, and also one of the classes here. Catholics, who are more hostile towards suicide in general, are less likely to commit suicide than their Protestant counterparts. And Protestants are, known to be more relaxed, I guess, more liberal, you could say. I guess the Christians. But between the two, the more religious ones are less likely to kill themselves.
You can't really call Protestant that's, there's like 30 different things under that umbrella.
That's true, but let's just assume it's like your typical
like you get
Protestant.
But that's not a typical Protestant. You get a Baptist and Episcopalian would probably, that's way off. Like a Baptist is like probably definitely more likely to be right wing than like a regular Catholic. And then your Episcopalian or like Anglican, whatever the heck they got over there, they're a lot more liberal.
Well, I think my issue is that they think, that if we have less religion, you're going to have less suicides. We looked up some stats, and it more just depends what part of the world you're in. I don't think you can correlate. I mean, I guess you could correlate, but it's not a causation. I don't really think you could. I think there's a real weird correlation you could draw between, less religion equals less suicide. I would think more religion is going to decrease suicide.
Yeah.
Because you're going to have a community that cares about you.
Oh, yeah, and there's negatives. You kill yourself, you ain't going to heaven.
Yeah, exactly. And that's where I did. And here's the other thing. They don't back up their stuff a lot with stats. They back it up with theory. With stuff people have just farted out their rear end. There's nothing really here that's any substance. Like, these people are just insane. That's the impression all of us got. These people were uneducated, insane, and just poorly organized. Like the exec board, there was like 6 people presenting this. They were arguing amongst themselves. They were confused. They were all bopping around with different thoughts and theories on their own. Like, there was no... Like, they didn't know what they were doing when they were trying to control the crowd. They failed at that. I mean, it was just terrible. Like, these people just... it was so unprofessional. And that's one thing I've tried so hard to balance with Turning Point, is to keep it fun, but to also maintain that professionalism so we're taken seriously.
Oh, yeah. Just look at that. It looks like crap.
It's terrible.
It looks like someone just found like some stuff and they just were like, oh, this looks, they didn't even bother trying to go and make it look visually appealing.
No title for a slide should be 2 lines. 2 lines.
Capitalist realism and post-modernity as a dominant ideology of late-stage capitalism.
What does that even mean?
That sounds like the name. That's like a thesis, not the title of a slide.
You could tell they weren't raised right. You could tell they weren't raised right.
No, you said they were uneducated.
Any parent.
Hold on. You said they were uneducated. I counter you. They were overeducated because you do not get that stupid by yourself. You get that stupid when you take sociology classes, when you take, Marxist theory, like these oppression ideology classes. You don't get that stupid by yourself. Like, I know stupid people, and they're not that stupid. These people were educated to be stupid. They're brainwashed.
Yeah. That's fair. Well, the thing, like, they just didn't seem like they knew what they were talking about, and that's where I got that from. Is just they just seem so, like, surface level, barely mentioning something, with any, like, meat to it. It was, it was like
vegan,
just
they don't like meat.
Yeah, true. It was like just the lettuce of a salad, There's nothing else there. Just air. Just filler. The next slide.
Propaganda. It's literally propaganda. That whole thing. They don't want to teach you something. They want to tell you something.
Yes, that's true. That's a very good distinction. They want to just tell something, preach something rather than teach it or explain it.
They hate religion because they want to be the new religion.
This is a religion to them.
Yeah, it is, because you just have to believe. Like, you have to believe the patriarchal, racist, sexist, capitalist, pig dog, American. What else don't they like?
They don't like the nuclear family.
Oh, yeah.
You want to talk about that? This is the slide that triggered me. This is the one that got me going like, all right, these people are dumb. There's a slide that has about the nuclear family, and I'll read the first 2 lines here. Again, these are like paragraphs. The first one says, because of the emphasis on the ideal nuclear family in American culture, how awful, people are often stuck with the family they were born or trapped in. An unhealthy marriage is poorly worded. In an unhealthy marriage out of fear for the social stigma if they tried to leave.
What? People leave all the time.
Yeah, and
like, you know, you have the option. Like once you're 18,
yeah, you can leave.
Yeah.
like, you know, you're in college. If you really want to get married and leave, you know, it's possible.
And then I'll
I
tell
mean,
you
it's
how
not easy, but you know, it's a heck of a lot more easy than if you lived in like, you know, Soviet Russia, and you know end up like getting you know, it's a pain in the butt like dealing with all that stuff over there. It's not any easier in there. And you know what? They had nuclear families in Russia.
Yeah, they did. Everywhere it does.
And the only times they won't have nuclear families if people had so little money that they had to go and bunk with their grandparents.
Well, what they argued is this is what the slide says. There isn't a large social response to childhood trauma, and the source of childhood trauma is often family members. People are often forced to blah, 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 and it just goes on and on. But there's a slide, I think it's like that's like the part 2 of it. You know, they had more to say. You know, there wasn't, you couldn't fit all in one slide. So on another slide, they said, as shown in the Engels in his Origin of the Family, the modern capitalist ideological conception of the family was created in effort to further the interests of profit.
No. No, you know, they had nuclear families in Russia. They had nuclear families in China.
It's a natural thing. I asked them about this. I said, look, it's a natural thing. Like, where's this profit thing coming from? And then I twisted them a little bit and really got them to think about this more, because I said, I have an autistic retarded brother. And if you guys are saying the nuclear family is all for profit and it's this bad, awful thing, I'll tell you that I would much rather have my brother in a bad household with a bad family than no family at all. Because no family means he's on the streets, he's homeless, and he would have been dead by now.
Oh, you know, that doesn't make that's the exact counterintuitive. Like, you know, with you know, they say the nuclear family's for profit. It's actually, you know,
it's to save money.
You know, try living on your own. You know, you have like one Netflix account. You have
it's a good point.
You know, you have one. You have to buy everything. You know, versus you can buy in bulk and save money. Like the nuclear family actually saves money. You know, so they have they're exactly opposite of what's true.
Well, I think a lot of these people didn't have the best families coming up, and that's where they formed this hatred.
Clearly.
Of where they think that and also let's remember the family is also a very big thing in religion, especially Christianity, and they hate Christianity. Like, look, I have a lot of issues with a lot of religions. I still think Christianity is the best, and I'm an atheist. I think it's a good thing for a lot of people, but I don't get this like hatred for Christianity. It's really weird because these people are perfectly fine with Islam, which is the most anti-women, anti-gay religion in the mainstream, you know, really like the top religions. It's like the worst, you know, but they're fine with that. It's progressive.
Oh, that's fine too. They have that picture and it shows like the communist, the Soviet Union dude and the Chinese.
With a nuclear family. Where are those two men?
Oh,
wait. Well, what is this? I gotta get a closer look at this. I didn't even look at this.
Oh yeah, you don't know. It's like
Oh.
gay China.
no, they're not. No, they're not gay. It's supposed to, that whole thing. They're taking a picture out of context because if you actually looked at that, they neither of those places allowed gay people.
I was gonna say, didn't they kind of like
That
kill
was
all those people?
That was showing. You know, there was that whole Sino-Soviet split too, so that's a whole other sort of issue over there. But just looking at that, I was just showing. This was probably made before that the Sino-Soviet split. They just want to go be like, hey, these are our brothers in arms. They're not much different than us. They both have the red flag. They both have the hammer and sickle, or the star and the and whatnot. It was not a thing of homosexuality. It was a thing that you know, they're both comrades against capitalism, basically.
Comrades.
But they did not allow gay people in either of those countries.
No. And they still don't like gays.
You know, the funny thing is, homosexuality is considered a capitalistic construct, if you ask like an actual person from the Soviet Union. It is a product of the bourgeoisie. I'm not even joking. Like, that's what, like, I listened to this one guy. He's from Soviet Ukraine. And he will, like, they talked about that. Like, they really did not like those people because they saw, you know, homosexuality as a sort of outburst of consumerism and materialism. You know, it does not serve the country to go and, you know, make love with a man because if you're a man, because it doesn't produce children, it doesn't help the state. You know,
I think a lot of these people too, they don't understand And I don't even understand because I've never done this, like what it means to have a kid, what it means to raise a family. They don't understand the power, importance, and purpose of that. And it's like part of the human, like existence is to have another life and continue things and give people this gift of living. Like they don't seem to appreciate that for whatever reason in this context, at least.
They're probably raised in a single mother household. You know, I imagine if you go and look at a lot of these people, they're probably like a bunch of edgelords who are...
No, they are. The guy on campus I've talked about that comes around on like this unicycle on goth?
Yeah.
I think he was there.
Well,
he looks like a goth Guy Fawkes, on a unicycle. Like, it's one of the most bizarre things I've seen at Penn State. And look, I love all kinds of interesting, weird people, but there's a difference between... like people like us, they're gonna have like sort of weird interests or weird proclivities in a good way. Then these people that just, I don't know, it's like there's something different about it. They're socially inept and you don't really want to be around some of these people.
It's like on the anime convention, that sort of...
Yeah, it's like the anime crowd.
It's probably the same people.
Yeah.
They don't go and wash because it's probably a symbol of the patriarchy to go and smell good.
It's bad for the environment.
It's bad for all those soaps, it probably kills the cows or something.
The cows.
Or kills the, sea fox or something. It always does something. It's,
like,
you're purchasing...
I'm all natural.
Yeah, unless you make it yourself.
I'm all natural.
We have to be vegan too, so which that's
vegan's not gonna be good enough.
Yeah, which is better, to have all natural or to have vegan soap? That would be the kind. That's probably what they debate.
That's a face off. That's
they probably
about
debate that. That's probably
yeah.
what they do in their meetings. Which is less capitalist, comrade? What if we have vegan? Is that better for the socialist cause, or if we have all natural? It is local produce, which is better for communist cause, socialism in the Penn States.
Just so everyone knows, that's not what they sound like.
They're probably what's better, guys? This is offending me. Where's my Dungeons and Dragons? My mommy's calling. Hey, Mom, what's going on? No, it's my stepdad. I don't like him.
Is my check bounce again?
Oh no, I don't like his stepdad.
Well, I can even say, like, a lot of these people, they seem like the type of people that you just can't have fun with. You can't talk about anything interesting or different with.
I almost would like to actually go and have one of these people here. I'd love to actually debate one of them.
I genuinely do, but they're scared.
Yeah, they'd probably try to fight me or something.
I know one guy. There's one reasonable guy that we might be able to get on. It would take some effort, but I can try, because he's more reasonable, and he used to be on the right wing of things, but went left, which is bizarre. Usually it's the other way around. Usually you find reason, you don't abandon it.
Yeah, he probably was trying to go after a girl or something, and it was like, ooh, she doesn't like me.
That's probably what happened.
I'm not going to rule it out. Next slide.
Hey, look, I tried to go to the Socialist Club because I wanted to hook up with chicks, and now I'm still a virgin.
Yeah.
Well, hey, this is what I will say.
Maybe he's hoping they collectivize the women or something.
Yeah, state mandated waifus.
Yes, what's it? Korea's doing that now.
Oh, really?
Well, apparently,
I'm moving to Korea. Sorry. Bye. I'm kidding. But I'm just like, I don't think these people are happy people.
No, do they look happy?
No, they don't. I didn't see any smiles from them.
Neck,
no
beard,
joy.
They're just like, oh, everything's so evil. Everything's so, it's against me. The book's stacked against me. There's nothing I can do except for try to go and promote communism. To promote an ideology that'll make state become like mommy is and just take all the bad boys away and make them be my friend.
Yeah, I think these people just need to get out there more. They need to experience life, have a little fun, joke around.
Oh my God,
don't take it so hard. Oh yeah, this is a Tyler's favorite slide, called "Psychology Sucks." Actually, by the way, this slide was the person presenting the slide was their president and a psychology major. And
Of course he's a psych major. He's probably nuts.
Yeah, they are all nuts.
All right, wait, did you
almost
just,
all of them.
Do you just assume her gender? What does
yeah,
she actually
well,
identify? Well, I mean, you never know with these, this particular group of people.
Right.
Maybe they
Could
have.
be hiding the penis. That's all I'm saying.
My gender is comrade. That is my
Morning.
pronoun. You call me comrade.
Well,
I do not have gender.
See, the thing is that I noticed that when we had a basically like a sex ed class over the summer, there was a psychology major in there that was so triggered when I was pointing out these things like, yeah, guys are attracted to hot chicks and women are attracted to big, strong, muscular men.
God.
I know it's a.
You're a monster.
No,
Oh
she's
my
taking
God.
You're a
Evolutionary psych
monster.
class, basically telling her from professor guys are attracted to attractive women, certain features that are attractive. So
Yeah, she I figured, because I found she's a psychology major, and I know a lot of what these classes are and what she's doing, what they're learning. And look, we guys just sort of like get some of this stuff. We have our natural drives, and we kind of observe things and know what women like and don't like, especially after a lot of trial and error, like myself. And failures along the way. But you do I can tell that these sort of people, they go into psychology and it's telling them these hard truths that they don't like to hear, and what they can have one of two reactions. They can either, number one, realize that they're wrong and change their minds, or say, no, I'm right and they're wrong, and this is all a patriarchal construct. This is, men telling me how to think and a bunch of other BS. She's one of these. The latter, where she thinks psychology's all wrong and she's right. And so they totally diverted the discussion to bring up stuff about the bell curve, race, and IQ,
Bell curve.
and all this other stuff that had nothing to do with what they were talking about.
AT, I got a question for you.
I cannot hear.
Phil has a question.
So you,
I can't hear.
she's
I'll
still
give
here,
her the
right?
headphones.
Sure. Yeah, I can hear you now.
Yeah.
Pass the
Okay. Hey.
pipe
Yeah, I
with
got a
that
question
one.
for you. Hey. So the on this psychology sucks actually slide on bullet 2. What is ODD?
Obsessive OD.
Oppositional defiance disorder.
No, it's something with OCD.
Yeah,
or
so it's an
something.
OCD type.
Yeah,
I
it's
don't
maybe an
think so.
OCD.
Let me Google it.
I might be wrong, or maybe
It's the one where
opposition. I have
was
never
right.
heard of that.
I was right. I'm not a psych major. Reconsider
I
your
have
major
never heard
choice.
of that actually, because I've taken an abnormal
Yeah.
psych class. I've never heard of oppositional defiant disorder.
It's one of the stupidest disorders out there, but
It's a
I would-
disorder in a child marked by defiant and disobedient behavior to authority figure. So
Oh.
it's being a teenager.
Well,
yeah,
basically,
that's
they
what I mean.
call
They're
it.
actually kind of right about that. I feel, but everything else is probably BS.
Well, basically, in my abnormal psych class, that technically is maybe you might have a child who's gonna be developing antisocial personality disorder,
Well,
which is
yeah, it's like the first
psychopathy,
stage of that.
sociopathy. So that's what it is. But I've never really heard of ODD, and technically, I don't even know if it's in the DSM anymore. I might be wrong,
I
but
don't know. The DSM's full of crap. Like the new one, they take the traineeism out of there or something.
mental illness.
well, yeah, only a very small proportion of the DSM and even the psych field is kind of influenced by I guess the political world, but it's only that small, very small,
Is it
maybe
the-
1% though.
Oh yeah, that entire major. If you go and look at the what was it, the replicability crisis.
What's that?
Yeah, you're a psych major. You don't know what that is.
Well, we didn't go over my
Wikipedia that.
classes, so
Wikipedia that. No, it's where less than half of all these studies in psychology can be replicated.
What's it?
The replicability crisis.
Sorry, I'm typing this
no,
out.
it's okay.
Okay.
Replication crisis.
What?
Oh, they want you to donate
Sorry,
money.
Wikipedia. I'm too poor.
Ongoing, which one?
It's as of 2019 an ongoing methodological crisis in which has been found that many scientific studies are difficult or impossible to replicate or reproduce, and that's something that's important, for science, that you can reproduce it to prove something. Replication crisis affects the social science and medicines most severely. Crisis has long-standing roots. Blah 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 blah. Yeah.
Yeah, so basically it's all BS.
Well, not saying it's. Not
If they can't reproduce it, You know, if you can't reproduce something, yeah, it's probably not science.
The thing is, like, when it comes to studies, I've taken a stats class, and they said, like, if you can't replicate the study or do something similar to a study, then that study is not really that good. So that's just one of the rules to, I guess, when it comes to publishing studies, you have to be able to, like, replicate it or, you know, add more factors into it. So
Apparently
if you can't,
that hasn't been done properly.
Apparently not, but anything is, you know, prone to mistakes.
Yeah, but it's like...
You know, they should probably make sure before they, like, what was it, the Harvard prison experiment? Apparently that was, like, debunked. Not the
what's that about?
Stanford prison, I think they end up, like, debunking it. They couldn't replace that.
Yeah, but isn't that
that's
the
more
one with the...
That's a psychological thing. I think we talked about
Stanford, I think it
wasn't
has
when they were
prisons.
injecting blacks with syphilis?
Oh, that was a different
Tuskegee.
Tuskegee.
Was that even psychology? I thought it'd be more
That's
biology.
That was psychology.
Yeah.
I thought they were just giving people syphilis.
Well, it's just more on ethics.
They can't do that one again, obviously.
No, it's just like the unethical one. They can't really get through it or replicate it because due to ethics, and there's like a board of ethics you have to go through.
Yeah.
So was that what you mentioned? The what's it called? The replicability, whatever.
Replication crisis.
Replication, yeah. Then when it comes to studies, you have to make sure that the study can be replicated, and then be used again, or maybe changed in a way. If you can, then it's not a good study.
Social psychology, 25% can be replicated.
Yeah, that's not good.
The highest replication rate is 50%, so only 1 out of 2 in cognitive psych can be replicated.
What's preventing the replication? What are they doing?
They're not doing it right. They're doing they're not doing it right.
Though?
They're coming up with bias. They're biasing it.
Oh, okay. Then bias is a problem. But
their whole conclusion's wrong. They can't replicate
what
it.
part are they biasing? Are they biasing the theory, the hype, I guess observations? If you bias the observations, then that's like another problem.
No, they couldn't reproduce the results.
Well, if you bias, that's just another part of, like, if you bias, like, or try to bias the observation, or if you, like, try to write the observations down in, like, a really biasing way, then that's obviously, like, a big no-no when it comes to making studies. So if they're doing that, then obviously, then they're in the wrong.
It's a pretty bad rate, though.
It's a very bad rate, and I've...
So how can you trust any psychology study?
You really can't. Unless you can replicate it, unless you have someone else replicate it.
Exactly. It has to be replicable and, like, a few other criteria going into it to be, like, a good study.
Psychology's a
This
meme
is why
major.
I don't trust a lot of studies, to be honest. Like, I hate to be that guy,
Psych
but...
is a meme major. Changed my mind.
It is.
I think psych is very important, but I just don't think they're doing it right.
If you can't trust any of their things, you just it's almost like a step above sociology.
No, sociology is like all theory. Sociology is crap.
If you can't reproduce half of your studies, that means they're not
I know,
done right.
that's the problem.
It's a step above.
What part though? Let's look into. Is it cognitive? Is it social?
It's a cognitive.
Like there's
that
different.
Was the one you said was
cognitive
like 50%
was the highest. That was 50%.
Yeah.
The highest at 50%.
Where was that on here, Alex?
I think it was up. Yeah, you were over there. Yeah, that line go up. And 30% of PSI. Blah, 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 blah,
PSI. Oh, here it is. Studies in the field of cognitive psychology had a higher replication rate, 50%, than studies in the field of social psychology, 25%. So only half are replicable in cognitive psych. So half of the studies you've ever read in cognitive psych could be BS.
You have to flip a coin.
Yeah.
Is this useful or not?
Because I want to know what exactly they're doing wrong, like what part of it, like
does it matter necessarily? I mean, wrong is wrong.
No. The thing is, like, what you want to do is like figure out what is going wrong here, look into like the problems, and like find the way to fix the problems. Yeah, that's the thing I'm talking about.
They'll tell you later on, but that's just kind of like the short and dirty of it.
Yeah, and that doesn't mean those studies necessarily wrong. It's just it doesn't make them very credible.
They're completely uncredible.
Yeah.
You know, that kind of decredits the whole field.
Disagree, but...
Well, what makes it feel credible, then? For those that would say it's not.
If you can't replicate the study...
Well, for example, maybe the studies field, like half of, like, as they pointed out,
What the heck is that? I've never seen that one before.
I tried to go to psychcentral.com saying, oops, no replicability crisis in psychological science after all. Oh, I can't view the site.
Someone blocked the page.
Yeah, the school did.
What? Oh my God, they used to let, when I used to be here, they used to let you go to like real, dirty websites, and they block Psych Central. The heck?
Ooh. There might
It's
be a
nuanced
conspiracy
now.
here.
Yeah, which means it is.
Well, I don't think all of psych is, completely like throwaway. Like,
Well, yeah,
it's like probably that, like the studies, because the thing was like when it comes to like information, such as like different parts of the brain, you just can't say like, oh, that part of it is like a total doo doo, because you do learn, like, hey, different parts of the brain has to do with like different parts of like motor, cognitive, and all kinds of like control, or like, for example, how like people like behavioral psychology, you can't just say like all of psychology, even including like behavioral, is like total doo-doo, as I say, because I can't say any bad
No,
words.
they have the percentages for those.
They do, yeah, but you just can't like rule out all of psychology, though, because in any
No,
field, even
You can rule out the
Psychology's
ones. You can rule out the ones that have been proven unreplicable.
well, yeah, you can do that, but you
Yeah.
just can't like call out all of psychology for it, because they're even
Well,
with any
it is a
field you
large
go
percent.
into.
Look at chemistry.
It's
They
very
can.
significant percent.
Yeah.
Yeah, like look at chemistry.
Yeah, it
You
is.
can't psychology's not even really science at that point if you can't reproduce it. It's more of a
Well, it's
theory.
considered more humanities, though, so it's more in the that's why I think Penn State and all the other colleges put into like liberal arts. It's different from like chemistry, biology. Psychology is more human behavior. Chemistry, biology, that's more heavy sciences, so that's the differences. But even then, though, there's probably also issues within the bio field or even the chemistry field. So
I think this last paragraph in this article is important. It says, what do we make of this whole data? It says there are two major takeaways. One, many studies falsely or report false positives, and many studies have a tendency to overstate the effect sizes in the case of true positives, most likely due to small sample sizes. The presence of one can be attributed, that's the first reason, attributed to publishing practices in which novel positive results are encouraged over negative or replication results. In order to minimize number two, the author suggests implementing pre-registration plans of experimental setups and analysis in order to combat the over-reporting of effect sizes.
Yeah,
Sounds like they're trying, like some of these studies try to make these grand statements that
that's
aren't
a big
really
problem.
true.
It's like, what was it? Like, hey, people do really bad things if they eat tomatoes or something. I don't know, something like that. It's just like they'll say, this gives you cancer, or maybe not, but that's a different
bio.
thing. But like, what was it? The Stanford thing? Like, if you're an authority, that means that you're automatically going to be evil. But then if it's like, some people might be bad if given too much power. It's like, okay, so there's a little bit difference here.
Yeah.
And I think it's the way you reward it, because in my my Psych 200 class, like my professor, he kept trying to change up the words for the conclusion. Like he kept retyping the sentence over and over again, because like the wording really does matter when it comes to the conclusions. So you have to be really, really specific. So yeah, maybe it's the way that these studies might reward things that might not be very clear. So you have to make it really clear. And he states like it has to be like dummy proof. Like it has to be like for like the average person to read the conclusion.
They're confusing as hell.
They are, and that's like another problem. But then that's when you get into the academics world, and you've said it before. Like
Well,
they're
this whole
very
thing is
disconnected.
academics world. It's
We're in
That's what I don't like about it. It's so, like, these
Well,
people are in their little bubbles.
we're in a university, so
they're in their little ivory
Yeah.
tower.
Yeah. Well, we'll look at some of the other slides we got
Better
up
keep
here.
on going before we keep getting sidetracked.
I know, but I think it was important and it was interesting at the same time. Let's see, alienation's the next bit. It has like a B on it for some reason.
Time poverty.
Oh boy. Oh, here it is. An introduction to Marxist humanism. That's ironic. For Marx, human nature is defined by our creative capacity as a conscious, free producer, realizing our species being through the life activity of our labor.
What the heck
What
does
does
that
that
mean? That's just a
mean?
bunch of word salad.
I know. Our creative capacity is what distinguishes our labor from that of animals. I mean, I guess that's kind
okay,
kinda
okay,
true.
Where are you getting at it?
Under capitalism, however, man is alienated from his own autonomous, creative, and social nature. And whoa! How?
All right,
Capitalism gives him freedom.
Let's see the 4 key ways.
Socialism says you can't do this and that. Let me find what's the next slide.
Do you talk about what the 4 free ways are?
Yeah, let's see. I think I have the slide up there, or maybe I don't. Oh, here it is. Alienation from the products of our labor. We are not entitled to what we produce. What?
Well, what do you mean by...
Well, what are you producing? If you're producing a Rolls Royce...
yeah, if you're a farmer, you can absolutely get your stuff. You just sell some of it because you're not going to need to eat like a whole thing of it.
Yeah. Like, that's a bit of a silly point. The act of work itself, we do not feel connected to the act of our labor. Well, that just depends what job you're doing. Not everybody's going to love a job.
You think they're better in Soviet Union times? Oh, no, they weren't. People were connected because they just stole stuff from their assembly line.
Yeah.
Like, that was a huge problem in the Soviet Union. Like, it was such a screwed up system that people would rather be a worker at a convenience store than an engineer.
That's pretty bad.
Because they could get more money by stealing the food over at the convenience store before everyone else had the chance to get it, and then selling it on the black market for 4 times markup.
So another alienation is of ourselves. Capitalism goes against human nature. Wait, no. That's so stupid. Capitalism takes advantage of human nature.
So it makes us different than animals.
People are selfish, and it takes advantage of that for the benefit of everyone else.
Capitalism makes us different than animals. Like, we can actually go and trade. Like, that's actually something we should celebrate.
Yeah, you can own your own business.
Yeah, you can go and like create something. You can have a niche in the world other than just, something, this is how I make food and eat and poop.
And here's another thing. Alienation from other human beings. We are pitted against our fellow worker. Everything's fellow. Competition rather than collaboration.
No, if you work on a team, you want to be on a team.
No, see, that competition goes a number of ways, right? So with capitalism, right, you have a lot of businesses that are competing, right? What does that do?
Brings out the best product.
Right?
Yeah.
If businesses are creating similar products, it's going to drive down the price. And so the competition in all spheres, it happens with workers, but it happens in the business world as well. So again, they're necessary evils. You take the good with the bad. And yes, sometimes things work out, sometimes they don't. But it's still better than creating a manufactured system that is destined for failure from the very start. These people have no understanding what the hell they're talking about.
They act like competition's a dirty word.
Yeah, because they're the type of people who couldn't compete in anything.
Yeah, they want participation trophies.
Yeah, they're these people do not look like the people who would be winning any sort of competition, except for like the most likely to work at Walmart when they're 50 because they can never find a job.
Yeah, it's like
most likely not be able to pay back their student debt. And
you don't understand that, like, for example, Apple and let's say Microsoft, they're not going to collaborate. They're in this for money, for profit.
Well,
they're going to compete,
they don't
and
collaborate.
That's
why they can innovate.
Exactly.
You look at like a Soviet Union, they can't make anything decent. Look at China.
Because you have an incentive to make a better product.
The only thing that China makes decent is stuff that they steal from us first.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, it's just so silly. Like, they have such a utopian view of things. Like, we can just come together and imagine a world where we collaborate together. No, it's not how people work. People are selfish. They take advantage of each other. They backstab each other. Like, you can't just collaborate all the time about everything. And that's, again, where their globalism comes into play. They think the rest of the world can just be friends all the time and love each other. Tell it to Israel and Palestine. You want them collaborating? It's not going to happen that easily. It's just hilarious. What's the next slide? We have alienation of labor in action. Oh yeah, they had a SpongeBob meme on this one. Look at this. Majority, it has Squidward saying, I really wish I weren't here right now. The majority of people have no personal connection to their jobs and simply see them as a way to put food on the table. A number of global employees described by Gallup, blah, 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 blah. Basically, it's saying that people don't like their jobs and this is bad for their mental health. Well, look, I want to have a job I love too, but I have to work towards that. That's something I really push to get. And sometimes you got, make sacrifices in life and do things you don't want to do because you need to make money to put food on the table. Socialism and capitalism isn't going to make you do the job you love. Like China, they just say, oh, you have a kid? he's going to be an engineer. Oh, you have a kid? He's going to work for our military. You know, it's like there is no freedom to choose what you want to do. And to be fair, like in America, there are limitations where you not everybody can be this and that, but that's just how it works. That's just going to be natural.
Oh yeah, like you can't even like if you're in China and you have like a registration, you live in the middle of the countryside, you're gonna be a peasant your whole life. You're never really gonna be able to change anything. You're born in Beijing. That's like you're top of the world now.
Yeah. It's just such a very idealistic and like they just look through things through this one frame that doesn't consider anything. I don't think these people have had jobs, and if they have, they blame it on, if they're bad at their job, let's say, they'll blame on other people. They don't look inward. They always look sort of outward, and they only look at one side of the picture here. What's the next slide here? Time poverty. What is that about? Trying to go through these in order, but it's difficult because I don't even know what they're talking about on half of these things. Even if you're economically stable in capitalism, you have limited time to do things you enjoy.
Oh, so apparently in communist land, they just have unlimited time to do everything?
Yeah, I think they want us to sit around and have, maybe if we have robots doing stuff and we turn to like Wall-E and have people.
Dude, if you want to work in a job, like, look, there's trade-offs. Sorry.
Yeah.
There's trade-offs. If you want to work, and if you want free time, okay, you're probably going to have a lower quality of life. Sorry. Or unless you have some job that only you can do, right? So, or like, you have jobs that are now, that doesn't even apply in 2019 anyway, because a lot of these jobs, like accounting and all that stuff, they have flex scheduling anyway. They just put what hours they want to work in, or put what hours they worked on a particular thing, and then they get paid. That's how they get paid. If they want to, so that way, and like I know in my internship, I had an internship with an accounting firm. They gave me a laptop, and I worked on the stuff, whatever projects we were working on,
mm-hmm.
whenever I could. Like if I wanted to work on it during the day, I just mark it on the pay stub. If I worked on it on night, like on my free time, I do that. And that's where most of the stuff is going in 2019, just because the technology has evolved the way that it has. It's like this argument is not specific enough for the points that it's trying to make. Like it's ridiculous. I don't why. How does this make any freaking sense?
Yeah, it's terrible. And the last major slide they had was the solution to everything. And there's a meme of fully automated luxury gay space communism as a solution. I get that it's a joke, but I don't know. I don't know either. I don't quite get, but their solution is unalienated labor, from each according to their own ability to each according to their need, structuring labor around the needs of the many rather than the profit of a few, drastically shortening the 40-hour work week has been plausible for for over a century due to capitalistic overproduction. Now with the rise of automation, it's even more feasible, as many existing jobs are becoming entirely unnecessary. For proponents of capitalism, this is a disaster, but for socialists, it is fantastic. FALC. I don't know what that means.
Fully automated luxury communism.
Oh, yeah, I guess you're right on that.
I don't think they're joking.
Do they really think these solutions are...
I don't see their argument, because governments tend to be incredibly wasteful with this sort of thing anyway.
Yeah, they say capitalistic
overproduction.
Overproduction. I don't think communists will be able to do that. So, that 40-hour work week maybe will need to be 60.
But doesn't the market adjust to overproduction?
Yeah.
You can't be wasteful in the corporate world because, you won't last. You just won't last being wasteful unless you're in an industry that you dominate so much that you can afford to be wasteful. But you can't. Like most industries have competition. You can't afford to just be inherently wasteful because you're going to lose. Your company's going to lose. If capitalism by its own, it's naturally efficient, and the government is like naturally. Look at these governments. These communist or socialist governments. They're wasteful. They're incredibly wasteful.
It was funny because they also pointed to like countries that supposedly had better healthcare than us, and they point out Cuba.
No,
It was one of the dumbest things ever. Like, Cuba is better because I think they...
Yeah, it's a luxury island.
I think they said they had more people covered, but I was like, yeah, but it's probably crappier care.
Yeah, it's third world care.
Yeah,
everyone has it.
It's third world care, yeah.
Everyone has it. No one wants it, but they got it. It's like school lunches.
Yeah.
Like, look at how the government dealt with school lunches. Do you really want them to be dealing with your health care?
No. It's just this whole, that was the gist of the presentation. Then we had the Q&A where one girl from CR just made them lose their minds when she said that capitalism, under socialism and communism, you have to go in line for bread, but under capitalism, the bread comes to you. She was going off now. Capitalism just makes our lives better and happier and all that. They couldn't handle that. I asked a question about the nuclear family like I alluded to you guys. All I did was point to theory. It didn't even answer my question. And they just got so silly, and it just didn't seem like like anything productive was going to happen. It didn't seem like there was just any like any structure, any sort of like professionalism about it. And one guy was kind of like, trying to keep everyone together, and it just, oh man. It was a disaster for them. I bet they don't realize it, but it was a disaster. It was absolutely terrible. Any final thoughts before we roll out? Or anything else you guys want to talk about?
I take joy in their disaster.
Hashtag me too.
Yeah, it did. How upset were they when you triggered, like when you brought the facts?
When we walked in?
Yeah.
Oh, when we walked in, they were just like, oh, it's them. You gave us kind of like a dirty look. And I was like, oh, and I had my MAGA hat on, and a bunch of other people did, so I was like, hello.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, it was fabulous.
Oh.
We will do. This is why I sent our agreement. I was like, great job, everyone. We were all civil,
yeah, you guys need
nice,
to do more
articulate.
Of these.
And if you know of any other of these coming up, please let us know, and we will make an appearance. This got so many people out too. Like even before, like during like when finals are starting to come up, we got like 30 people to this. That's impressive. Conservatives may be a minority, but we are the most active, political group by far on this campus.
Yeah, you had to go and see people. Like you really talk to some people.
And if anyone, by the way, if anyone has gotten this far in the video or the podcast, we have to create a brand new club to bring our speaker in the spring because they are that controversial. They're not crazy, they're not wacky, they're not Richard Spencer, David Duke types, but we have to create a new club. So if you know a conservative professor that could be our advisor, please let us know because we need to make this happen like so badly. Just to see the look on these people's faces when they see that Voldemort, calling him that because he will not be named, is coming soon. It's going to be just amazing. I can't wait. Thank you for listening. We'll be back next week with more real news.